your keynote before we go over to Munawari Parsats. Over to you, Mewongji. Thank you. Mewongji is currently actually working at ICIMO. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubet. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings from our end. To begin with, let me send my greetings to Dr. Sajid Amin, Deputy Executive Director from the SDPI, Mr. Sham Jahan Misra, the CEO from EEDP, and other distinguished participants from various agencies of Pakistan and beyond. I am Ivan Galson, the Program Coordinator for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Capability for Hindukush-Himalaya at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. In fact, we attempted a couple of times to come to Pakistan and have a face-to-face interaction to understand the priorities and challenges, in Pakistan, but due to unavoidable circumstances, we couldn't make it in person. For this, we would like to sincerely apologize for showing up virtually. Nevertheless, I bring with me the warm greetings from the Director General, Dr. Pelma Jamse, and our other ISIMO staff. At the outset, we would like to acknowledge the generous support we have received from the SDPI in coordinating the participants from various agencies in Pakistan and in hosting this roundtable meeting. This meeting would not have been possible without strong support from SDPI. Distinguished participants, for those of you who do not know the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, abbreviated as ACMOD, it is a regional intergovernmental learning and knowledge sharing center serving the 8 member countries of Hindukush-Himalaya, namely Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, Nepal, and Pakistan. We at ISIMO seek to enable a sustainable and resilient mountain development for the improved and equitable livelihood through knowledge generation and regional cooperation. Working in partnership with regional and international organizations, we aim to influence policies and practices to meet environmental and livelihood challenges emerging in HKH region and provide platform for researchers, practitioners, policymakers from the region and around the globe to generate and share knowledge, support evidence-based decision-making, and encourage regional cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, despite endowment of vast renewable energy resource potential in the HKH region, mainly in the form of hydropower and other renewables, HKH region remains energy poor due to variety of mountain-specific challenges. More than 80% of the rural population in HKH countries, many of whom actually live in the mountain areas, rely on traditional biofuels for cooking, indicating we have not moved much up the energy ladder. Given the topographic features of the mountain, dispersed communities, underdeveloped markets, limited capabilities, and poor economies of scale, there is a great demand for affordable and renewable energy and energy efficiency solutions and technologies. Such solutions and technologies have the potential to stimulate transformational livelihoods in the mountain communities and respond to the sustainable development goals if we only work a little harder and seek convergence of our collective efforts to make this happen. Therefore, to address these mountain-specific issues and contribute to improve access to appropriate, affordable, and renewable energy services, to meet socio-economic development needs of the mountain population and also to safeguard the ecosystem services, REACH initiative was established in 2019 as a regional center for renewable energy and energy efficiency with support from Australian Development Agency, and I joined in October 2019 as the past coordinator. REACH program works on four components, generating evidence, influencing policy, strengthening institutional capacity, promoting enterprise development as our impact pathways to enhance the resilience of the mountain community through expanded energy linked economic opportunities and livelihoods. Right from the very beginning, we were aspiring to have a very close interaction with the communities and relevant institutions from the mountain regions of our RMC, better understand the socio-economic challenges resulting from the lack of energy access and low level of technological adoption in sustaining livelihood options, and to respond to your calling. However, regrettably, the COVID-19 came in between with travel restriction and a host of other issues disrupting all our plans and programs. I would also like to inform you that we are now closing our fourth midterm action plan and moving forward to the fifth midterm action plan with a renewed vigor and raised ambition, which will actually operate from 2023 to 2026. Therefore, one of the objectives of organizing this exploratory consultation meeting is to listen to your deliberation, understand your priorities, explore opportunities where Istanbul as a regional knowledge center can value to your development pursuits. To this end, SDPI has also drafted a draft policy capturing relevant issues and priorities through their own research and analysis. And we hope to get these findings validated through the roundtable discussion we are having today. So we look forward to having a frank, fruitful, and productive discussion and explore ways to inform the concerned agencies for designing strategic intervention to accelerate energy transition in the mountain regions of our HKH region. Wish you good luck. Thank you very much. Over to you, Virgin.
Gee, thank you so much, Mevongji. I think you all fully understand how important role has ICI mode has been playing in all HKH region all across the world. So yeah, a lot of products have been, a lot of partners. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So Mevongji, I was just highlighting that we fully understand how important role is ICI mode actually playing in this whole HKH region. So now with this, we're very pleased to be joined by Munawar Iqbal Saab. He's from Private Power Infrastructure Board, Ministry of Energy Power Division. He's working there as a Director General of Hydropower. So sir, just to again bring you to update, we are being joined here today by representatives from all provinces of Pakistan in person as well. We have many CSOs joining us online in this consultation. I think we all fully understand how important the whole energy situation has become in this situation. So I think with this, I would actually invite you to provide your initial keynote address. Over to you. Thank you.
All executives from the SDPI and provinces, and obviously all the guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good morning. On behalf of PPIB and AEDB, first of all, I will be appreciating SDPI to holding this great event with the collaboration and association with ICI Mode and UNIDO. I am honored to be here with you in this great event. It is very important event, by the way. Most of you are well aware that PPIB and AEDB are two. One means it is consisting of these four territories. In the past, FATA, which was a federally administrated area, was also part of this, but now that has been merged in KPK as a merged district or merged region. As a whole, this region consists of about 25% of the population of country. From the perspective of energy access in this area, which is a very important factor for economic growth, almost 75% to 99% access is available, but that connectivity is not sustainable. Still, when we visit Hunza or other regions, even in the cities, energy, particularly electricity, is not sustainable. Load shedding is there, voltage drop is there, and many times other issues about the connectivity, because the transmission lines are not stable, no regional grid is there, so obviously there are isolated systems normally. Similarly, access to clean fuel, GB, nothing, and other three regions very limited. Say cooking gas is 32% in KPK, around 13% in AJK, Balochistan is 37, and GB 0, no gas. If we talk about the available potential, particularly renewable potential in these four areas, in Balochistan, as per World Bank Variable Renewable Energy Locational Study, in Balochistan, technical potential to generate about 1,850 megawatt of wind and solar by 2023, 1,150 megawatt between years 23 to 25, and 6,150 megawatt between years 25 to 30. Similarly, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, technical potential to generate 200 megawatt of grid-based solar by 2023, 325 megawatt between 23 to 25, and 400 megawatt between 25 to 30. The technical wind potential is limited to only 50 megawatt by 2030. However, it has a vast potential of hydropower that is beyond 30,000 megawatt. Talking about Gilgit-Baltistan, there are about 302 hydropower project sites consisting of total 21,000 megawatt. It consists of high, medium to low heads. Out of these, around 223 small range hydropower projects are in operation with total capacity of 170 megawatt. And they are connected to the local transmission lines and off-grid arrangements. 30 small hydropower projects are under development process in public sector. GB region has short fall of electricity ranging from 150 megawatt to 400 megawatt from summer to winter season respectively, because there is a heating is actually the heating demand is actually the peak demand in these areas. These are colder areas. Azaz Jammu Kashmir is a little better because there are abundant hydropower resources already have been developed. So anyhow, the far-flung areas of AJK also have a similar issue. Let me now talk about some socio-economic challenges in this area. There are low disaster preparedness due to limited adaptation practices and the lack of access to finance, health services, and indicators describing the prevalence of diseases in the region are below the national average. Limited educational opportunities, gender discrimination. Reportedly, gender discrimination in this area is averagely more than rest of the area. Issues related to the clean water availability and sanitation, limited employment and livelihood opportunities, etc. Now, how this energy access can make this region a little better. Energy access critically improves the quality of education by ensuring that children have access to ICTs, digital connectivity, and hospitable learning with thermal comfort. Global experiences have indicated that an increase in electrification of the region leads to an increase in time which the students normally spend in their schools. Decentralized energy solutions in energy deficit region have proved to be a common solution to ensure availability of safe and clean drinking water, hygiene and sanitation issues in educational institutions. Inequitable distribution of energy sources has also impacted the gender roles, where limited access to resources has impacted women's exposure to health, indoor pollution, and lack of opportunities for their decent employment. Decentralized and clean energy solutions could not only address the indoor pollution but can also provide women with equal opportunities to contribute to family earning and livelihood. Various global models exist where rural women have diversified their role and lead small-scale business for climate adaptation to provide food, health, and education to their children. While livelihood and environmental challenges are integrated in every nexus of energy, the land system also lies at the core of several development issues, including food security, health, biodiversity, clean energy, and environmental action. At the end, I would like to emphasize that this relatively deprived region needs special attention of the stakeholders in managing energy for economic uplift of this region. I hereby leave the matter for further discussion and deliberation for the upcoming roundtable session. Many thanks for listening. Jazakallah.
Gee, thank you so much, Muhammad Iqbal Saab. I think if it's very clear that over the past year, even both national as well as provincial governments have come up with a lot. Especially if I look at the policy front, I think the national federal government of Pakistan has come up with a number of policies in the past year. Just starting with alternate and renewable energy policy, which actually targets that Pakistan has to achieve a share of 30% renewable energy from VRE and 30% from hydro by 2030. And apart from that, Pakistan does have finally an indicative generation capacity expansion plan, which also targets achieving almost even beyond 60% of generation share in Pakistan's energy mix by 2030. So again, definitely, even apart from this, Pakistan has also come up with a competitive trading models as well, and national electricity policy plans are there. So again, definitely, even apart from the federal government, provincial governments have also, as well as the development partners such as other CSOs, including Aga Khan Rural Support Program, Sarhad Rural Support Program, they've also come up with a number of initiatives just to address the energy access. So it appears that even on the policy front as well as on the development side, there has been definitely progress has been there. Definitely a lot needs to be further developed. So yeah, that's I think very much clear. So I think with this, we would actually just start with a perhaps round of discussion, introduction. So I just request initially Dr. Hina Aslam to just start, please.
Thank you so much. I'm Hina. Excuse my voice. I lead the energy unit here at SCPI, and I'm really grateful for the stakeholders and colleagues who have joined us for this consultation on behalf of STPI, and very much looking forward to this dialogue. Especially the key outcome and the key objective of this workshop is how we are going to have the cross learnings from Nepal for this region. I think that's something that is the most important element of this workshop and beyond, and that's where we are looking into how we can pay forward to address the existing challenges that we have in the region and in the country to improve energy access and energy efficiency. With this, I would like to move on to yes.
Thank you. I'm Engineer Asif Mahmood. I am a sustainability and demand-side management specialist, and I've been associated with this renewable energy or energy efficiency sector since last 16, 17 years, so from policy till implementation. So looking forward to having a good interactive session today. Thank you.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammad Ilyas and I am working in Pakistan Power Delegation Fund in the renewable energy sector.
Assalamualaikum to all. I'm Dr. Irfan Yusuf. I've been working in cost-cutting areas like energy, regulatory regimes, policy making, recently jumping into climate change policies, NDC implementation, and voluntary carbon markets. Um, the area of discussion today is very exciting for me because I was in Gilgit the last week and now I'm heading towards Quetta in the next week. In an assignment that leads to preparation or implementation plan for NDC and the NDC that Pakistan submitted to UNFCCC. We're identifying some projects that can be funded through the donors, and I think I see more activity can lead us towards finding some good solutions. The numbers have given a very fruitful information. However, things are a bit different, and because I have been there for 2 weeks and I have visited different areas on ground, and I can see that the issues are far reaching, and we need to address those issues, of particularly Pakistan and Pakistan. So I think this is going to be a good exercise, and we are looking forward. Thank you.
I'm Masoodul Mulk. I head the Sarhad Rural Support Program in Peshawar. We work on micro hydroelectricity and generate about 29 megawatts of electricity through our powerhouses in Malakand, Kohistan, and in parts of the tribal areas. We've also got a large program on social energy, doing similar things.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aziz Ahmed, Director Energy Department, Government of Balochistan. We are working on solarization and hydropower and wind projects in Balochistan.
Dr. Manavar Iqbal, I am DG Hydropower serving in PPIB, and I am also coordinator for coordinating hydropower project development in GB. And obviously, being my table job, I am dealing with hydropower potentials in AJK, all connected national connected area to national grid like KPK and AJK. Because in Balochistan there is negligible hydro available, so mainly this KPK and AJK, which are anti-DC connected areas, so they are coming under the policy. But the GB is not yet connected to the national grid, so we are facing problem in financing those projects because due to legal issues or legal disconnect, the investors are not yet interested in that. At least it is not legally, though the investors are interested, but legally it is not yet possible to have connection because till it is connected with the national grid. And luckily, nowadays, GB is in the process of developing their regional grid for developing their all the district to connect each other. And obviously, with the next 1 or 2 years, if that will be completed, so that will be having an opportunity to connect that relatively shorter regional grid to through Assam connection to the national grid, and after that, I'm sure the PPIB's role will be magnified there. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone. I'm Ali Jabbar, Deputy Chief Planning and Development Department, Government of Gilgit Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Muhammad Umar from Pakhtunkhwa Energy Development Organization. I'm Deputy Director and working in the Renewable Energy Directorate. We are working on hydropower potential and solar powers.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank ICI Mode to give opportunity to share knowledge across our regions. My name is Shirabaz. I am serving as Superintending Engineer in Water and Power Department, GV. Water and Power Department has already been established in 2005. Its main functions are generation of hydropower energy and its transmission and distribution. Though Sir Manwar has already briefed you about the crisis of energy in GB, we are not connected with the region. Even we are even not connected locally, which so we face extreme energy crisis. All the powerhouses are operated in GB independently due to lack of local grids. Though national grid has been launched presently about 5 billion cost through PSDP, due to allocation of meager funds in GB, we cannot harness the existing potential in GB. It's about 2,700 megawatt energy sites have already been identified. The feasibility studies of these projects have already been submitted to the higher forums, but due to lack of GB power policy, we have no any further proceedings to attract the donors for harnessing of these power sites. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ehsan Javed. I'm a research fellow at SARC Energy Center, Islamabad, Pakistan. And basically, our center is working for the promotion of regional cooperation in the South Asia region. Plus, we do the capacity building through different workshops, research studies, and pilot projects.
Assalamu alaikum ji. My name is Muzaffaruddin, and I currently am doing different things. I worked for AKRSP for a long time. I was the CEO of AKRSP, and AKRSP was a pioneer in initiating this community-based micro hydro program. And we have a great lesson learned, and in the process, we piloted many interesting ideas, include the carbon credit initiative. We have also recently we did a mapping exercise of energy at village level. It was the first time we have done it in HKRSP to know that what are potential at micro level capacities of and problems of energy. I'm here today from another organization because I've left HKRSP. Is called Ultra Poverty Graduation Initiative. I'm here particularly looking into energy and poverty. So I think that is also a very important nexus because poverty and energy has a very, there are a lot of studies now, and globally also that energy is, has a very clear nexus with poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Muzaffar. My name is Khalil Tetle, and my career is very much like Muzaffar's, AKRSP and Rural Sport Programs Network. Currently, with this UPGI initiative, we are looking at the nexus between renewable energy, poverty reduction, poverty graduation, rural livelihoods, women's empowerment. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Khalid Khalid. I have recently joined STPI's Energy Unit, and I am very much looking forward to hear and get experience from interprovincial, interregional, and cross-country debate of energy from mountains, within the mountains. Thank you so much.
Yes, okay, Maya, if you can also have a very brief introduction of yourself as well.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Maya Reed and I work as a research associate at STPI Policy Solutions Lab. And for me, it's a very new topic, energy access and efficiency challenges in Himalaya. Because first of all, I didn't even know there was something of this magnitude going on. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot from this session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Salma Fariti and I'm currently working in a region like STPI and looking forward for cross learning from Nepal and also the challenges HKH region is facing in energy access system. Thank you.
Gee, thank you. From the participants, I think Zufin, if you could just also, the online participants, if they can also briefly introduce themselves as well before we actually start with the roundtable discussion. So over to you, Zufin. Yeah.
Good morning once again. I'm Leon Gerson. I'm program coordinator for the Renewable Energy Efficiency Program at CMOD. Thank you very much. And then also my colleague is Ismail.
Good morning, this is Mohammed Ismail. I supposed to be there with you in Islamabad, but for some meeting I am here in Kathmandu. So my name is Mohammed Ismail. I am currently representative of ISMO. Thank you.
Gee, thank you, Ismail. So we were actually looking forward. So yeah, over to you, Ms. Costa. Thank you. Ms. Costa, you muted actually. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so very glad to have you everyone here on Roundtable Dialogue. Well, my name is Kosar. I work with ISMO in adaptation specialist. Also, I'm looking for gender and energy areas within the REACH program. So I'll be joining you very soon. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Abhishek, if you could just. Yeah, okay, I think Abhishek and Zofina are not online. Okay, so I think with this we can actually, Ali, please, if you could just go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ali Rehman. I'm working at the Sustainability and Resilience Unit at STPI. So I hope we'll have a great discussion about energy access and ecosystem in Pakistan in the most detailed way. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Ali. I think with this we would officially like to initially start with the first roundtable discussion, which is actually on opportunities and challenges for energy sector development in the HKH region. And this discussion will be moderated by Asad Mahmood Saab. So, Asad, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think a wonderful platform has been set already. So we'll have a sort of, in order to give like enough time to all the panelists in this specific session. I'll be calling up the names of the panel representatives for this specific topic, which is on opportunities and challenges for energy sector development in HKH region. So we'll be having Sudhir Mulk Saab, Umar Pervez Saab, Ali Jabbar Saab, Sher Abbas Saab, Aziz Ahmed Saab, Dr. Irfan, and Ehsan Javed, and Zofine, if by that time she comes online or is available. So we'll start with one representative each, and you can give your 2 or 3 minutes so that the time could be allocated in a judicious way. And once you give your inputs, and the other representatives may note down their questions. So once we conclude with this ongoing session, we can have like sort of quick, fruitful, and result-oriented dialogue at the end of the day. So we can start off with Masood Mulk Saab from SRSP. Sir, opportunities and challenges, and your 2 minutes to start now.
Um, in the 90s, the community development model was very well demonstrated in the north by AKRSP and subsequently taken in other areas. But the challenge was, how do you take this to a higher level? And what you see is a powerhouse in Ashuran generating about 1.6 megawatts of electricity, and there's another one with 400 kilowatts, and this supplies electricity to Kalam, which has about 3,000 households, but 160 hotels too. And it's run as a social enterprise, and that was the challenge, because communities have disabilities when you go to these larger projects, and this is a demonstration of what can be done. Next, please. The larger projects means technical capacities need to build up. Like this is the channel which diverts the water into the hydropower. Next, please. That's the estate in winters at the same place. And now this is another hydropower up in Chitral, 700 kilowatts in Ayun. You can see a 4 kilometers channel bringing water from the river below to this powerhouse. It's sustainable, financially sustainable. Both of these are financially sustainable. The previous ones too. But what is additional over here is the water that you have in excess is being pumped up into the mountains also and we're making this mountain green using surplus electricity, pumping water up, which is available at very cheap rates, and it's also supplying electricity to about 1,200 households. This is an example of it, and you can see it's become the surrounding areas are becoming green. We also see these as sort of an ecotourism place where people would come up and get associated with these kind of work. Next, please. And you can see it's all becoming green. The mountain above has started becoming green. This whole area, which was almost a desert when this project started 4 years back, is now totally green. The kind of devastations these projects face, this is in Kalam, where the 400 kilowatts, its head and was damaged in the recent floods. This is a 400 kilowatt powerhouse that was initially there in Kalam. It was a government-run one. The government found it could not run it, and it was handed over to SRSP to upgrade from 2 to 400, and then from 400 to 1.2 megawatts. So we had 1.6 megawatts of electricity over here. Next, please. Next, please. These are the sort of damages that they face during floods. And next, please. Next, please. And this is how it was all transformed into and providing electricity. So it's become a big provides big boost to the power sector over there. What is interesting is about these social enterprises. They are run by SRSP. The income that comes from these projects goes into a fund, which will then be used for sustaining them, and also goes back into the communities. So it's an interesting model of involving the communities, but running it through a professional organization. active involvement of communities in this whole process, and the government. For instance, in this case, the government handed over these powerhouses to SRSP. These are the traditional small hydros that were initially stated. So we are really talking about going to the second stage and involving communities, but where communities have a lot of disabilities, what are the models that you're going to pick up for it? It's not only the high head ones, but we also have opportunities in low head, and this is one in Ujnu and Upper Chitral in very remote valleys where you're using low head to generate about 300 kilowatts of electricity over here. And you can see this power out with a very low head generating electricity. And this has now been there for almost 5 years, and it's just sustained itself.
So I think that you have depicted very realistic and interesting information, and especially that aspect related to community. And I think that would be the common theme between our other upcoming speakers, and I would request to shed their light on this community aspect as well while they are going to discuss the interventions they have already taken. So next is Mr. Umar Parvez from KPK. Peter.
Collect this. The provincial government of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is disturbing the heart. The provincial government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is disturbing the heart to provide the clean energy at cheaper rates to poor rural communities through development of mini micro hydropower projects for flung areas. The program is running in access to clean energy, which is run by the PDO, funded by Asian Development Bank. In first phase, we are installed the capacity of 28.9 megawatt overall the KP region, that is 316 number of projects. And in phase 2, we are going to install 303 projects having a gross capacity of 50.4 megawatt under across the KP.
So, well, that was quite efficient and to the point, and you like the abstract presented in a summary manner. I'll be next inviting Mr. Ali Jabbar from GB to present his viewpoints.
Thank you very much for inviting in this vital workshop. As Manwar Saab and Sir Abbas has rightly highlighted the opportunities and challenges of the region. Gilgit-Baltistan, I will talk about HKH most relatively to Gilgit-Baltistan. Gilgit-Baltistan has huge potential of green energy like hydropower, wind energy, solar and bioenergy sources. And the most identified sites are 21,000 megawatt for hydropower, 60 megawatts for solar energy, and about 30 for wind energy. Uh, Despite of this huge potential, we ourselves are not sufficient in energy. Our total installed capacity is 186 megawatt, and out of that 13 to 15% is thermal and other is hydro power generation, and our demand is 500 megawatt. And nowadays in winters we are facing 15 to 18 hours load shedding in the region. Due to severe climates, this energy inefficiency or deficit also affects our environment because overpopulation uh, goes for cutting of trees, and that also affect our environment and climate due to deforestation, landslides, engulfs occurs, and we have to pay a huge investment on disasters. And so these are the potentials, and the challenges are the first major challenge which I assume is, as Manwar Saab said, that GB power policy is yet not approved because this is a federal subject. Draft policy has been submitted in federal government. Up till now, this policy is not approved. Due to non-approval of this policy, our two projects, 100 KIU project and 80 megawatt 100 projects, are agreed in 7th JCC of CPEC. They stand agreed in 2017. Due to non-approval of this policy, these are yet not undertaken, and investors are not willing to come due to absence of this policy. Hence, GB and the other challenge is that in the rest of the country, WAPDAS is responsible for generating electricity and energy. Because Gilgit-Baltistan is not in the ambit of WAPDA, we are investing our mega resources on generation of power. And this year, federal government has allocated 15.5 billion for development budget as a grant for Gilgit-Baltistan, and we are investing 15 to 18% on development of energy. Next issue is that our Simal, we are producing this 186 megawatt from 1 to 3, 127 hydel projects. These hydel projects are constructed on extreme gravity and streams, and they are also uh, subject to the disasters, flash floods, and other things. Once a flash flood occurs, they are washed away, and we have to pay a huge operational cost. And also for transmission lines and transmission cost is also up. So the most and immediate requirement is approval of Gilgit-Baltistan power policy that can help Gilgit-Baltistan to boost energy, boost in the energy sector. Thank you.
Well, I think on this specific aspect of policy, we during the question answer session we would be looking into the comments from Mr. Manover on this specific segment, and Mr. Sher Abbas, would you like to add on the GB side?
Thank you, sir. Sir Jabbar has already briefed about the on regarding the planning sector. I would like to add about the technical sector of GB. Presently, we are generating only 90 megawatt hydropower generation out of 186 megawatt due to less plant factor of the installed small and medium hydropower projects, which resulted in huge and excessive load shedding in the area. These are the major problems, but we are presently uh, combating this energy crisis by attracting the uh, donors, and presently, especially in district Hunza, IPS Palmer Energy is also supporting GB to combat with this energy crisis by installing 1.5 megawatt hydropower generation through concession agreement. The GB government has allowed the IPS for construction of this hydropower generation by concession agreement due to lack of hydropower policy in GB. Thank you, sir. This is the main step on technical basis.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that another aspect which you might be, or all the northern areas over here in Pakistan, is something related to the ecotourism aspects and lack of energy, also leading towards economic loss in that context. So that is also a challenge, and opportunities needs to be worked out in that context. So next we move on with Mr. Aziz Ahmed from Government of Balochistan to please share their remarks.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Ahmed from Energy Department, Government of Balochistan. First, I will talk about the opportunities. As Sir Munawwar has indicated, that Balochistan has enormous solarization and wind opportunities, and it has a lot of capacity. And in globally, the Balochistan sunshine irradiation is 5.9 to 6.2 kilowatt hour per square meter. It is considered one of the best rated globally. And another thing is that Balochistan is also enormous wind potential. It has a 500 kilometer coastal area, and it has more than 5 meter per second. The wind velocity is 5 meter per second, which is considered as appropriate, and the minimum value for wind velocity is 5 meter per second for the viability of any wind projects. So Balochistan has enormous wind renewable energy capacity, and government needs to tap its potentials. And in this aspects, government of Balochistan Energy Department has utilized many renewable energy projects. It has conducted a 500 megawatt wind Nokundi project. It has issued LOIs to Anglo, and it is now in the process of execution. 500 megawatt Nokundi wind corridor. It has issued LOIs, and in addition to this, government of Balochistan also issued LOIs to KE in Las Vegas division. 500 two power plants of solar power plants of 550 megawatt, and yeah, 50 megawatt. Two solar projects of 50 megawatts. They have Uttal and Bela. And in addition to that, 50 megawatt two solar projects to Innertech also. Yeah, Balochistan has enormous capacity of renewable energy. It is working on this, and it has already issued these LOIs to the well-renowned companies. In addition to this, energy department, beside this, to counter the energy shortage of Balochistan, as Balochistan's demand is, as per Casco survey, energy demand is 2500 megawatt, and it is supplying 1500 megawatt. And to overcome on this, we energy department has come up with a solution of standalone solar home system to the dispersed population. So we have distributed 3000 solar home system yet, energy department, to the dispersed population of Balochistan. In addition to that, we have also installed wind in Las Vegas, wind turbines, 5 kilowatt wind turbines, to counter these all things. As Balochistan is very vast, and its infrastructure is very bad infrastructure. It has many issues, infrastructure, even security issues, grid connectivity issues. So we have come up with a solution to solarize and wind projects to cope with these all situations.
Well, thank you very much. And specifically in context of this HKH region again, because we are talking about grid connectivity and things like that, and you have mentioned a very pertinent point about dispersed population. This is what HKH region is mostly about, and there might be not a single solution, a silver bullet solution for all the regions because of the altitude and weather patterns. So that aspect also needs like sort of ground shop floor scenario analysis, and I think the next speaker, by virtue of their engagement with the community, active engagement, I think they might be able to shed the light on this segment during their talk. I'll be inviting Mr. Muzaffaruddin from AKRSP, from not from AKRSP now, from the other institute which you have just recently. Is the linchpin of that department.
I've been with HKH. We are here. I can see two persons in Nepal also. They were former HKH. So my engagement with HKH was for almost 22 years. So it's there. I think the most important thing we all have discussed is, you have rightly said, the issue of geography of these regions, or socio-economic, even constitutional, legal aspect of the regions. So, and it all impacts us. I will, because I was not prepared to talk about the HRSP initiative. I was thinking here to highlight the role of energy in poverty reduction, which is, I think, is also one opportunity and also a challenge. But taking this opportunity, I think energy, what we have, as Mr. Saab was telling, when the ARSP started its program in northern Pakistan, it gradually come up that if you want to get out of poverty and participate in growth, power is one very important factor. And it was initially a big struggle then because in our country, we all think that it's government responsibility to provide power, which we think is not, of course, it's government responsibility, but I think we have to, as most of you say, we have to create some innovative solutions. And one solution was, why not we also ourselves start it? Because we are part of the government system, so why not we all contribute? So then this community-based model was initiated with a very small, and then it goes on. And I think this has created another space in these areas that if community can manage a powerhouse, or if a community can construct a powerhouse, why not we bring private sectors and who can work with the community? So I think, for example, in case of Gilgit-Baltistan, one of the success story is Ahmedabad, a village where the first piloted micro hydropower, and then they established another one, which was initially it was 50 kilowatt, then they went to 100 kilowatt. Now they have almost around 1 megawatt, and they have a utility company model. The utility company model, the solution we powered, is that you can manage it like a business or a social enterprise. So that HRSP was advocating. So we have, when I was in HRSP, we have established almost 10, 15 utility companies, community utility companies, and many in Chitral and few in Gilgit-Baltistan. So in case of Ahmedabad, the utility company is now providing electricity not to Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad village is surplus, but also selling it to nearby village like Altit. In Hunza, there's the only village area which has 100% full-time, no load shedding is Ahmedabad and Altit. And I think with the support of private sectors, they are thinking to move forward. And I think building on that, the government has thought, why not we bring private sector? I will again here reiterate that we should include community into these, because this has, we have a long results, experiences, both in Chitral, now also in KP, other districts, that if you want to bring private sector, why not people participate in this, people invest in this, people, and people benefit from it because they earn money. Saying that, I'm here to highlight that globally nowadays you all are aware that the multi-poverty index, one of the indicator is also energy. For poverty, when we see MPI study, energy is part of the livelihood or living standard index. And there has been a global study on energy and poverty, which has a very interesting insights. One insight is that the OPHI, Oxford Policy Human Development, did a global study and found that 16% of in poor countries, 16% of population are energy poor. And very interestingly, these 16% energy poor, those who are energy poor are also poor in social sector and economic sector, and also in other related indicators. The energy poor is not only access, because we see, particularly in Gilgit-Baltistan, above 90% people have connection lines ahead. But cutoff is one major contributor to poor people, because when we have load shedding, limited, so people are having. The other thing which is now growing, which I and Khalisa was traveling in all Pakistan, and we have found very interestingly that cost of energy, cost of energy is gradually becoming a major issue for poor people because they have electricity, but because I'm not talking about northern Pakistan because Gilgit has a very good rate. I think you are increasing, but in rest of Pakistan, this price of energy is becoming very high. So I think what we have to see is that if you want to, for poor people to participate in growth, they can sustain from, they can get out of poverty, but to participate in growth, to do any value-added thing, our energy is a must thing. So if we didn't provide any energy, I think a poor cannot participate in any growth or, it's a very important factor. So here I will call, thank you very much.
For this segment, for the time being, we'll have your more insights in between. So we are joined in between by DGEPA, AJK, Mr. Adnan Khurshid. Just to give you a quick context that our panel is now discussing the opportunities and challenges for energy sector development in HKH region and Himalaya Karakoram Hindu Kush region, and specifically as you are very much involved in the EIAs and IEs of like hydropower plants, but other power generation technologies as well related to energy access to the people living in far-flung areas. So your views would be very much encouraged and appreciated, specifically if there are some issues which you are facing, because most of the time we are talking about grid connected projects. So, and the communities at the end of the day, they start facing the consequences. So, are there any, because as far as like limited information is concerned, there were some issues which EPA was handling in context of few hydropower plants where the communities later on raised their concerns. So, despite getting the access to electricity, what other aspects EPA manages, and your views and opinions on that would be appreciated as well. TG EPA JK, can you kindly unmute yourself and give your views, sir? Can you please unmute? Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead, sir.
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Ali Singh. I am Deputy Director EPA. DGPA is on the way to office. He will join us shortly. Then he will communicate the EPA response as we required.
Okay, so meanwhile, we'll go towards our next speaker. Can you please mute yourself, sir? And we'll ask you to uh, like join us again in a while. So now I would like to ask Zufin Ibrahim if she is there and share her views and remarks.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm very happy to be among such enlightened people. I've learned a lot today, but I also wanted to say that a few years ago, some years ago, I'd actually gone and seen the micro hydro projects that SRSP had put up in Swat. And I'd gone to Ashuran, I'd gone to Baidun also, I think, yes, I had. And that's when I learned about a little bit about MHPs. But I think that there are some things that remain. I mean, obviously, it's great to have these things, and this is what we need in in the mountain areas, and I also spoke to communities and how they had benefited from this. But there are some things that still need to be worked on. Although my knowledge may be now, still 4 or 5 years old, but I'd like to ask the experts to if they can kindly talk about what happens when it is snowing and when the water has frozen. What happens to communities when they don't get electricity? Because apparently you get electricity only in the summer months, which just last 4 months. What happens after that? Because this electricity cannot be stored anywhere. What happens when when there is some malfunction in the machines? What happens? Because what I was told was that these things have to be brought down to certain districts where there are workshops, and it takes about a few weeks to months to get them repaired. So what happens during that time? A lot of donors think that this is a one-time investment, but we know that with climate change disasters happening often, these projects are insufficiently protected, and villages become dark again. And villages cannot, the communities are unable to bear the rehabilitation of micro hydro projects because these are expensive machines. So I would like to, know if things have changed in the last few years since I left. Although I was like really, really very, very pleased to see those and learn about them. As a journalist, I would also think that this is an important step that has been taken and has been happening for years. But people like me, people who are living in cities like Karachi, very far from the mountains, know very little about these projects. So it is important that the word should get out and people should know about these things and not just stay with experts like you. Thank you.
Thank you, and a very burning question you have asked, and we'll ask our subject specialist, Mr. Masood Al Mulk, and others to also complement on this specific aspect of availability of electricity when that in the freezing season the MHPs face, specifically the communities. What are the alternatives for them in those winter months when there is no electricity generation from those MHPs?
But in the case of SRSP, in almost all the powerhouses that we have constructed, the level of water does fall down in winters, but we haven't come across powerhouses where the water is there's no water at all. So the electricity production, for instance, at Ayun, we have in the summers we're generating about 700 kilowatts of electricity. In winters, it goes down to 450 kilowatts. So that pressure builds up for about 2 months, and during that period, communities have to work out a way of managing that. But I can assure you, the situation is far better than what I face in Peshawar, even if it gets down to 450 kilowatts. The second thing is that rehabilitation. I think their sustainability is one of the big issues, and at the community level, it's been very simple. Communities have managed it. In 1994, I remember when we were doing this with AKRSP in Chitral, there were a lot of criticism of it that we are probably establishing dinosaurs. And in a few years, the government is going to come up with a lot of electricity in the area, and you'll all have these dinosaurs in every village, which would be just recalling what you've done. But I said, okay, let's see. So now it's over 30 years after that, and the communities are still running their own powerhouses and still getting electricity from them. So it's already been demonstrated that there are powerhouses that are running for over 30 years, so they can be sustained at community level. At a higher level, when you get into larger powerhouses like 2 megawatts, so we're talking of 700 kilowatts, or even more than that, there's a challenge. There's one model which in Gilgit, where you tend in the northern areas where you tend to get far more homogeneous groups. The communities have managed larger projects, and you've got this model of of utility companies. I think that's very good. But in areas where communities have much more disabilities within them, where issues of water rights, land rights, and communities like in Kalam, we had to raise the power rate by rupees 1, and we had to do 72 jirgas to raise the rates by rupees 1. So for that, we have gone for the alternate model, which is social enterprise, where you involve a professional organization like SRSP into the management part, but the community, the funds that are generated and the surpluses after its sustainability go back to the community, and that ensures that it keeps on, and the community also gets electricity. We get electricity around 7 rupees in our village, when in the towns we're getting it almost about rupees 20-25. That's one thing. Maintenance is something. Backups for them are there. As you have these more powerhouses, they tend to develop. But I think that's a sector on which a lot of work can be done on these turbines and the backup services for them. But I don't see any powerhouses have broken down, because that is not there. It's there. In fact, in the last few years, what we've been able to demonstrate in areas that are besides the northern areas is that there's a lot can be done effectively if you put in organizations, purposeful organizations. That's the critical thing. Do you have purposeful organizations? Most of the cases of failures in the hydroelectricity sector, and for that matter, in almost all sectors, is because you don't have purposeful organizations behind them. Can you create them? That's the challenge.
Great, sir. And any, yeah, please.
I think because Masood Sahab has rightly pointed out, I think two areas which I want to highlight. One is because these are small. Another thing which I think is very important, a good lesson learned in Chitral, when talking AKRSP, these utility companies have introduced prepaid meters, and that solves many problems. The first problem is because the cost reduced, because you don't need any. Second is utilization of electricity became so rational. In some powerhouses, we have still, I think, the power is not fully utilized because of prepaid meters. So I think these are some areas, and also this provide them cash, immediate cash, advance cash, so they can generate very good resources, rather having a problem of bill collection.
So very good insights coming from this question, and yeah, just quick comment, and then I will have to go towards the program as per.
Thank you. I think the important.
Your comment, sir.
The important thing is to understand the fact that whether do we need hydros or not. If you look to the statistics at the national level, only 30% of the hydroelectricity is in utilization in the country, and I think double to this is on thermal and other sources. Only 6% on the nuclear sources. So we are investing, I think, huge amount of our budget on input of the oils for thermal generation. Now, if we need hydros, then how can we develop the hydro sector? Should we go for large dams, or should we wait for the national grids to reach the 29% of grid areas? I think these are some questions which brings you to the importance of the micro hydros. And these models have already been demonstrated, the isolated off-grid models. Now, coming back to the opportunities and challenges, everybody knows here around this table that more than 60,000 megawatt of generation potential here in Pakistan. Only 11% have been harnessed so far. If we want to develop, and if all the stakeholders want to develop the sector, so there are some basic challenges. These challenges are at the policy level. These challenges are at the regulation level. These challenges are at the implementation level. The lack of capacities. We are still stuck with the decades-old technology and dependent on the imported turbines and imported electromechanical equipment, where there is huge potential of research and development here. There's an important missing link between academia, industry, and implementing partners in the hydro sector. There is a huge gap between the private sector and the government just because of the lack of the investment friendly policy in the hydro sector. There are 10 steps for private investor in hydro development. And when a private investor comes, he exhausts it only in two, three first steps because it takes 2, 3 years just to issue the LOI for these projects. So these are multiple challenges, but these challenges are not some of the type which cannot be addressed. We just need a focused and precise attention and planning and implementation at all the levels, right from the policy making towards the in consumers. One last thing that if micro hydro is the only solution for far flung concrete areas. So why wait for another 70 years to reach to those areas? Just promote and demonstrate the already demonstrated models and provide the electricity to those because it's directly contributing to 7 SDGs directly and to all the 17 SDGs indirectly. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to request Dr. Irfan Yusuf to share his expert views. And one thing that again I would like all of you to like also think upon, and we'll have a quick interaction on that even about because we are talking about the electrification side, provision of electricity, but the other two aspects related in context of energy, which Munawar Saab initially discussed about cooking and thermal comfort aspects. So that is something where also some opportunities and challenges are there, and how they could be addressed. We need to also have a quick input on that from everyone after our panel speakers just conclude their session. So, Dr. Saab, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Actually, this was my point that I wanted to highlight first of all. The topic that we were discussing basically is energy access. It's not only electricity access, but the energy access. And since I have been at least three places, of course, I went to Azad Kashmir, which is the Kashmir area. Then I went to Gilgit Baltistan in person. I went to different valleys there. I have been to Balochistan since 2004, and of course to this to the KP. I'm very familiar with most of the areas, which basically part of this HKH study. One of the issues which Zofine highlighted is one of the major issues that came across in our last consultative session with the Gilgit Baltistan, and the people there they categorically stated that the micro hydro turbines that have been installed on nalas and small streams, they are unable to generate electricity during the winter season. They are not supplying adequate electricity, and because of that, they have to cut trees and they have to meet with the energy requirements. And they run Bukharis for heating purposes in their houses. And this is one of the major concerns because, as per the stats, every person is cutting 3 trees in a year, and this is a documented number, and this is for heating requirements during the winter. And as it was already highlighted, Gilgit Baltistan has a very different challenge with regards to electricity. They need electricity for heating purposes during the winter period, and unfortunately these micro hydro power plants are not the solution at the moment for giving energy access to the Gilgit Baltistan. We need to think different. We need to think, have a broader perspective for that purpose. Energy access is electricity, heating, room heating, water heating, cooking, everything. So, given the cascade, looking at how the population is located in those areas, particularly in Balochistan and Pakistan, these are sparsely located. Dispersed populations are there. They're not connected to the grid most of the times. They have climate change issues, particularly what I have personally seen in Pakistan. I visited Hunza Valley, Harpo Valley, and a number of 3, 4 valleys more. The flash flood, the crop flood, the riverine flood, they were the major issues, and they don't find time to react. Even there are some early warning systems installed there, but they don't find time to react to those calamities. And as when it was highlighted that some of the there are no damages to the hydropower plants. Unfortunately, I've seen at least 7 micro hydro sites completely damaged because of this current flood. Uh, so I think we need to grasp the actual ground situation, and this is an area which I have been trying to work with the Pakistan departments now, and we are coming up with at least 3 to 4 broad projects for this region that can help not only energy access but also to create something different. Likewise, I was just discussing how could it be possible that a potato species coming from Holland was allowed to be cultivated in Pakistan. It shouldn't have been. A pesticide which is used for cotton that was used for the vegetables in Pakistan. How was it allowed? Similarly, expired pesticides have been used in those regions. How those were allowed? So we need to be very categoric, realistic, and then find the constitutions. Likewise, vegetation is one of the major concerns. There's no very less vegetation nowadays. They're cutting the herbs. They're cutting the medicinal herbs in a large way. Who is regrowing those? Who is regenerating those medicinal herbs? Nobody is doing so. Similarly, for Balochistan, there's no grid extension so far. There are no microgrids there. Nobody's thinking of giving access to electricity through microgrids. Why not? Microgrids is a reality. We can do it. We have explicitly shown these 86 microgrids in KP. Why can't these be replicated in Balochistan and Sindh? Similarly, HK is far better as compared to electricity access, but energy access issues are also there, and the climate change issues are happening there as well. With regards to technology, I have seen the technology. The people who are working in the energy department, they showed that the turbines, their efficiency was less than 50% there's a big challenge. Then why didn't these turbines qualified according to the quality control criteria? Who was responsible for allowing those turbines to be installed and causing a loss to the asset we have? So there are ground realities. There are some issues. We need to work upon these issues. These are the basically potential challenges we have to work upon, and there are a lot of opportunities here. Particularly, what I've seen, the community in Gilgit-Baltistan is charged, is motivated, it's well informed, it's literate. They know their issues and they know their solutions, and we have to work with them. Similarly, in HK and Balochistan, the people with whom I am working at the moment, they are aware of their issues and they are charged to get something good out of it. There are communities working there. Of course, community participation is important, and private sector participation is a basic thing which we have to ensure so that we can do everything sustainably. So government cannot do everything. Government has no financial muscles to do everything. We have to involve private sector, but involving private sector in a sustainable manner is going to be a thing to do nowadays, and this is a cross-cutting thing which we are looking at, and integrating climate change with energy access, with helping improving the land degradation, helping the food access. This is actually what we are looking at now, and I think this is going to be the future opportunity coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Irfan, for giving an insight of the latest ground shop floor situation. Then coming to the regional perspective and what else would be good to get the remarks from Mr. Hassan Javed, who has been looking into certain studies in one way or the other from SARC platform, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Asad. Well, a lot has been said from the national perspective. So I'll just quickly go through on the regional side. So the main aspect for any for energy sector development in HKH region are we have to reduce the emission reduction targets. We have to comply with those emission reduction targets. Plus, we have to look for the economic growth and creation of green jobs. Third aspect, which is very important, is the well-being of that community, whereby those clean cooking stoves or those clean heating technologies come into play. Plus, the fourth one is the social inclusion of gender aspect in this community. So for that, we normally propagate that development of indigenous and local resources should be given priority. Community scale projects have been very successful in AJK, and knowledge sharing, technology transfer is very important. So I'll just give a short brief on the regional cooperation opportunities in terms of macro and micro projects. At the macro side, what we have seen in SAARC region is that there have been different projects between India, Nepal, Bhutan. They have been trading electricity to those hydro projects. So there was a project called in Nepal called Karnali Chisha Pani, which is a 10,800 megawatt project. And the basic essence of that project was that potential electricity could be transported through to India and then to the Pakistan region because Nepal does not have too much demand. So those type of regional projects could be implemented whereby those electricity could be transferred from one country to the other country, and there have been many successful examples in the past. Second one is for those type of projects we need those transmission lines plus regional interconnection have to be built between those countries. Policy level inclusion has to be done specifically in case of Pakistan. What we have seen is that there is an intergovernmental agreement on electricity trade in South Asia, and the only country which is lacking behind is Pakistan. All the other SAARC countries have already ratified that agreement, and the other SAARC countries, including India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, they are trading not only electricity, they have started trading energy, oil, gas. They are developing those oil pipelines, gas pipelines, just to get cheap oil, gas from India and to the other regions of Bangladesh and Nepal. So we need to work on that one. The last one is on the macro level is the electric mobility infrastructure. Electric cars are coming into play. Do we have the charging stations available for charging of those electric cars? Plus, on top of that, those electric cars will require a lot of electricity. Do we have ample electricity to feed into for those electric cars? We are not able to meet the demand of our domestic side. So what will happen to that increased demand?
Sir, small point. Do we have the money to buy those electric cars?
Exactly, exactly. We need to, thoroughly inspect. Whenever we are giving some policy, do we have some background on that one? Do we have finances? Do we have those infrastructure to back up with that policy? Just giving a statement like we will have 30% of cars through electric. How we are going to implement that? Do we have planned some hydro projects? Do we have planned some RE projects to feed that electricity? So on the micro level side, coming to this specifically HKH region, so we understand that that region cannot be corrected through grid in the coming time. So obviously, community scale projects are the only way. So for those community scale projects, what we have done is that we have done a lot of studies on that one in South region, and we have identified successful examples. We have given quality standard scores, quality those labeling standards, which were already developed by India, Nepal, and Pakistan also. So we need to learn from each other best practices. Instead of developing our own machines, developing our own standards, if there is a country which has already developed those standards based on some 20, 30 years of effort, so why not just go there, try to learn from them, and then implement those same standards to our country? So we keep listening to those experts from Europe giving us feedback on those projects. So instead of that, we should go more on the regional side because India, Bangladesh, Nepal, they have the same background, the same policy issues, the same type of community. So for us, learning from them and implementing the same projects in our country could be a success. On the rooftop solar side, what we have seen is that Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka have been very successful. So the other countries of EC mode or South Asia could learn from those practices, how Pakistan's net metering policy became very successful in the last 3 to 4 years. So other countries could learn from them. Then on the Indian side, we have seen that they have been able to reduce their tariffs a lot in the last 3, 4 years, 5 years time. So what type of policies did they introduce in their region? And what were those? What was the essence of those policies? Maybe we could learn from them. On the off-grid side, we have seen that Bangladesh has been very successful. They have implemented those community projects whereby those small systems are given to the villagers, and 30-40% of population is connected through those off-grid solar projects. So why not our country, Nepal, say on the southern side of Sindh and Punjab areas, could be given those solar systems and following the same models of Bangladesh. Similarly, on the solar pumping agriculture side, we have seen that India has done a lot in that. They have implemented all those solar pumping projects in their agriculture sites, and nowadays the demand from the grid is very low, and their utilities are finding it hard to get those investment or those profits from those electricity trade before they were doing it. So now with the solar, they are losing the business. So what was the key initiative done by their country, which we could also replicate in our country? On the communities scale hydro projects, but we have already have spoken about it. Coming up to the point of Irfan, Dr. Irfan, I wonder when these projects were implemented in AJK or Chitral region, was there a feasibility done based on the minimum load required in the winter side, or was the load connected on the summer side? They have to have the proper feasibility, because or maybe the solution could be that if the river does not provide enough electricity, so a hybrid project of hydro plus solar could be installed. So instead of giving a 7 rupee tariff could be increased to 10 rupees, but at least the tariff could be able, the electricity could be able to meet the demand of that community whole the year. Otherwise, the technology gets the bad name, and then it is, I mean, propagated negatively among the society, and it's a kind of a problem for the
Yeah.
just few comments on the legal side.
Few but many. So we'll ask. Yeah, please, sir.
I think I'd just like to highlight one or two things. One is that in Chitral, in Kulen, there's a powerhouse that is supposed to generate 108 megawatts of electricity. It produces 40 megawatts of electricity in the summers. In the winters, it's supposed to produce 40 megawatts. It produces 6 megawatts of electricity. Now, this is a large scale hydro, which is not doing what it's supposed to do. But it will never even be mentioned. We will never even talk about it. We will talk about the small micro hydros. In a small micro hydro, you invest 5 million rupees, you're getting electricity for 30 years in an area where they would never have electricity. I live in a village. If I hadn't invested 4 lakh rupees into hydroelectricity, 30 kilowatts of electricity, 130 households would not have got electricity for the last 15 years. So I think when we talk about these policies and we talk about, let's also keep a sense of proportion in it, because one, we are talking about 30 billion rupees and not producing it. And secondly, this whole idea of a grid, connecting it to the grid. Sometimes you're not being connected to the grid is a blessing. An example, and in Golan, they produce they're supposed to produce 108 megawatts. Even if they produce 40 megawatts, there are 200 households living around that powerhouse over there, but they don't get electricity from that grid. That comes down to Lahore. It is not there for the people over there in that valley. And who produces it? You have to get the civil society to come in and produce 2 megawatts to give those people electricity. So I think we also need to be very, very careful about all the time when we project the linking up with the grid. I think it's a blessing you're not part of the grid, and we need to find solutions in that. The third is on implementation. We have this very synoptic view of planning that we can plan and we can do about it. But the example is that planning is generally a failure because you don't have information when you are going in with these plants. When we started micro hydroelectricity production in Chitral, we honestly could not find a single electrical engineer who would come and work over there. Not a single. Yet we had the money, we had to do it, and we had to ask an electronic engineer to work as an electrical engineer, and with him we started doing this work, and we were able to do what the World Bank calls the largest concentration of small microhydros in an area, and it has served them for 30 years. So we really, I think, in some of the suggestions we are making, we will need to have that sense of proportionality in it. Otherwise, we tend to lose out. The losers are going to be the people on the margins. It's not the people. The grid will always bring it to Lahore, but it's where the electricity is produced, they will never get it.
So I think
Can I just add one on that? So my talk was that now I'm not criticizing those projects or communities. We have to realize that those projects are the keystones, are the most successful programs in the not only in South Asia. Even if you find in South America, you don't find that community which can gel together, arrange funds for them, operate and maintain those projects for the next 30 or 20 years. You cannot possibly see any type of that project in Sindh and Punjab also. In Sindh, we have implemented different solar PV projects, but the community just stores the solar panels over there. They just don't pay back and the project gets failed. What we have found is that in AJK and Chitral and those northern areas, people are very gelled together, those communities are together, and they work themselves. They even pay from their pockets to fund that project and to get it successful done. What we are propagating is that we need to get it, that successful project has some limitation. What Irfan said, or even Zofin pointed out. So my point is that if we could try to find out those small loopholes and we could improve those projects further. Improvement, the chance of improvement. Otherwise, criticism, of course, nobody can say that. That community has benefited a lot, and we should work for the more benefit, for providing more benefits to that community.
yes, sir.
Sir, I want to just respond to Dr. Irfan's input about Balochistan. Okay, Balochistan, why Balochistan is not building any power, solar power projects? Even Balochistan microgrids, there is a problem of power evacuation in national grid. Balochistan has, even I have said, 500 megawatt. We have issued LOIs to Engro. That's the problem, because national grid is not capable of injecting this power into the system. And beside this, there is a overloaded grids of Casco and NTDC. We have tried our utmost, but we are not getting any response from the federal that they allow us to go for these our projects.
That's why I was saying need to switch over to microgrids, and we can discuss.
Yeah,
coming to Quetta outside.
yeah.
I'll be discussing the microgrid concept there. It's a 5 megawatt of 11 kV, distributed, well distributed. Solar wind, 5 megawatts. We can distribute the electricity to the community. We don't need all the 132, 20 kV coming from the national grid. That's a plan electricity. Similarly, what we are doing in HKH, we can have small grids.
We have also gone through this 5 megawatt in Avaran, but we are confused if the consumer commits for the sanction load, utility of sanction load. If they use the more load or energy, what is the threat of using, how to overcome this fear that the consumer is using the sanction load, or it is using more than what they have committed? PPM meters.
Gas per grid.
Okay.
So yeah,
Last, can I make?
yes. I'm not very.
I will come again to one very important one, because we all have learned, HRSP, communities, we come to a learning, and the learning, I think you brought out, the learning is also government is learning, and we are at least from the in Gilgit-Baltistan, and also in KP. For example, PIDO was when I was leaving HRSP at that time, PIDO was thinking to establish a common facility where turbines are repaired and also things and stuff. So I think the way forward, most important thing is because we all initiated for, as Masood Saab was saying, because there was a genuine need, there was genuine problem, there was no electricity, so you have to make something. You cannot wait for any supersonic models to come after 100 years. So community started it, they learned it. So I think now the way forward is how we can, because this important challenge is how government, community sector, which is now a big sector, at least in northern Pakistan, in Chitral, and the private sector can get together. It's very, very important. We have to now create spaces, support mechanisms that we can jointly work. Although there are joint work, government funding is there, technical support or investment from private sector, but we need to formalize it, and we have to move forward. I think that is one very important thing of this forum.
Yeah, and this also, I think it's the right time. I think before I call upon the next, probably the last speaker, that we can ask Mr. Munawar to focus on like two different things which have been highlighted. One was the intergovernmental agreement for the regional electricity trading, and second was like which the concern from our friends from GB have raised.
Sure.
So, what's the actual scenario and how this policy or this session specifically, which we are aiming, can help address those things specifically in context of HKH region, or if there is something, there is a certain delay, so we can give some certain directions to these departments to at least get the basic necessity provision available through their own budgetary allocations rather than just waiting to be connected to the grid. So any clear action plan or comments from your side would be like highly appreciated.
Thank you. First of all, let we focus on GB. From GB, there was a concern that the power policy for the Gilgit yet has not been approved. Actually, the status is that uh, the, the electricity subject under the Gilgit-Baltistan order, GB order, that is rest with Ministry of GB and KNGB. And under that authority, they have already constituted a special department, that is GB Development Board, like BPIB. In early 2020, the need came on the similar model as the AJK. In AJK, it was the same model, but they have changed from AJK Council to the government of AJK. So electricity subject has gone to the government of AJK, and GB government wants the similar treatment for them as well. Then for that matter, that board which has already been enacted, that needs to be repealed. And the electricity subject is to be introduced to the government of GB, and that needs an amendment to the GB order. And in year 2020, under my head, a committee was constituted who drafted the policy similar to the Government of Pakistan policy 2015, and we submitted to both of GB government and the GB council for their respective approvals. But at that time, GB government wanted to get this whole of this mandate to them, and for that matter, in the GB order, an amendment was required, and a special article 18A perhaps. Because this is an 18, so 18A was a new article introduced in the GB order, and that is required Prime Minister's approval and with the consent of the Supreme Court, because in previous some approvals there is some bar that any revision in the act needs to be first brought to the Supreme Court as well. So actually this whole mechanism is stuck up somewhere in this part. So we are unable to get the clearance from that masses where that needs to be first amended, and then this policy is fine-tuned based on the new mandates. So what is the, you can say the problem out of that? It was highlighted from their side as that the private sector is unable to take part in GB because of absence of that policy. Similarly, because PPIB is also leads the CPEC first EP panel, which decide about the inclusion or exclusion of the project in the CPEC regime, that is Energy Planning Expert Panel. So we have got approval from the China, being GB being a mouthpiece of the CPEC regime. CPEC, holds this route. So they are very lenient for these two projects of 180 megawatt total, 100 and plus 80. But because of absence of this policy, we are unable to implement that since last 4 years. So I'm sure we are still pursuing that matter. Obviously, the government of GB is also pursuing. We hope that this policy matter is concluded as soon as possible. And once this policy is there, so Muzaffruddin Sahab issue that the private sector will be able to come here. Just on the smart meter, one example, I heard in one of the KIU, there was some in university, there was some seminar. So I was told that in very near to Gilgit, there was a town which was requiring about 4 megawatt electricity, and they installed smart meters over there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was told that perhaps the collection was increased manifold, many times, and utilization was reduced to 400 megawatt to 2.5 megawatt. So it means actually that is reduced there. So one more aspect from the last year with family, I was visiting Hunza. So I was residing in a hotel, and in the evening I went to outside to a market. So you see, whole of the bazaar, the market was full of smoke because every shop was generating a diesel generator. So that is also having a cost. Imported fuel plus deterioration to the environment as well. So it was very unhealthy to go there in that bazaar, but they were not having. And obviously, yeah. One aspect came about from the KP side about the availability or harnessing of hydro. See, currently we are having 64,000 megawatt power potential, out of which around 10,800 megawatt we are in operating. So it comes out to be 16% approximately, and other 10% we are in pipeline. So as a whole, within the next few years, it will reach to around 25 and 27. By the way, worldwide, the hydro average is around 16%. So we are not far away from the otherwise. Actually, it is a particular GB area and far-flung areas of Balochistan and KAJK where electricity is having an issue. Otherwise, in the settled area, there is no big issue at all. And we are not far away from the world average. And as a whole, from the perspective of total energy generation and consumption, obviously at the top is the China, and then obviously comes on the USA, and third is India. But still, out of list of 209, we are at 32. So it is not still bad. Yeah, obviously, we are not of that. As when we say from the perspective of settled area, we have no current indicator generation capacity expansion plan. We have count for portion of our EVs as well, electronic vehicles as well. But obviously, when these vehicles will come to this area, so they will go to GB as well. They will go to AJK Neelam Valley as well. Obviously, they go to Balochistan as well. So from where they will get charging facility. So obviously, these all needs to be dovetailed with each other, and it needs to be. Yeah. So obviously that will also require. So obviously we need to think more about that. From the perspective of regional trade, yes, once I participated a seminar in Kathmandu. Maybe it was in 2015 or 14, perhaps, from the Islamabad center was with us. So I was also with them. So we talked a lot about that. But obviously, all these three regional countries are trading with each other. You know, the geopolitical situation between India and Pakistan, obviously, there could be a barrier. Normally, sometimes when there is a program where Pakistan is participating, India does not. So sometimes when India does, Pakistan does not. So obviously, when this behavior will be, I mean, we can't go in that detail. So obviously, if that is in future, sometimes it is settled. So I'm sure this trade can be possible. So I think I have covered almost all the things.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we have been joined by DG EPA. Can you please unmute your mic and I think I need not to repeat the question. Your colleague might have told you, but we were discussing the opportunities and challenges for energy sector and how EPA is making the things easy for the communities. At the end of the day, they need electricity and energy, but again, from the cleaner sources is the buzzword. So, how you are ensuring the access to energy, clean energy, in a convenient manner? DG EPA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us. I'm Imran Hussain, Director General Environment Protection Agency at Kashmir. Azad Kashmir has a huge hydropower potential and we are in the process of developing large hydropower projects in Azad Kashmir ranging between 1000 megawatt and upward. And we have very small hydropower projects as well ranging between 2 kilowatts. So in Azad Kashmir there is a whole panorama of hydropower projects either in the pipeline or in the construction phase. And so we have a very first-hand information and experience of the hydropower development in Azad Kashmir. There are primarily two sort of hydropower projects in Azad Kashmir, and first of them is the one of the renewable projects, and which includes Kuror hydropower projects, which includes Munda as well, and we have many others in the pipeline. And there are diverging projects like New Zealand hydropower project and Kohala hydropower projects. From environmental point of view, I will talk as it is about the environmental aspects that I'm mostly concerned. Due to the development of these hydropower projects, I think that we are facing a huge task in front of us regarding the conservation of our ecology, regarding the conservation of the fish, and other ecological aspects in the Azad Kashmir. As most of the projects are primarily disturbing the already existing eco structures here in Azad Kashmir. Being placed in the foothills of Himalayas and just in between the Punjab plains, we have a very diverse range of fish here. We just talked about one river, we say Punch River in Azad Kashmir. We had 32 different sort of fish there. And due to the construction of hydropower projects, now we are facing a great dilemma that these fish are depleting with the passage of time. So my concern regarding this concern will be that we must invest more into the protection of the environment and into the protection of the ecosystem there, specifically for fish and for the other events that are dependent on the rivers. Talking about the community and the participation of the community, I would say that there was a talk by gentleman, I don't remember his name, who was of the opinion that we must develop small hydropower projects. And in my opinion, it is the only way forward. Otherwise, when we construct the huge hydropower projects, it first of all displaces people. Secondly, it cascades the flow of sediment and other factors which are very important for the ecological maintenance or sustainable development in a community to talk about. So, in my opinion, small hydropower projects with small grids and distribution networks from that grids are required in Azad Kashmir. Because the areas we are talking about are farmland areas and people are living in very harsh environments. We are facing a huge deforestation in Azad Kashmir, and the primary reason behind it is the demographic changes, and because of the environmental changes, now we are facing forest fires and so many other phenomena like that, which are primarily inflicted due to the population growth in this area. And due to the deforestation and other factors, sufficient energy that is required for the summer, for the winter specifically in the hilly areas, we have very harsh winters here, specifically in Needham, in Rawalpindi, and in Muzaffarabad, and other regions which are located in these specific territories. These regions have very harsh winters, so people need to survive. This is about survival, not about the luxury. So in winter, they need something to survive on. If we do not provide them
sufficient energy supplied and on a very low price as compared to the cheaper things. So if we don't provide them sufficient energy sources for the winters, we cannot blame them that they are into forest fires and other things. Secondly, there was a talk about the community participation and community uplift. I would request all the stakeholders to please look into the issue because there is a CSR policy which is very vague. I would request that we must develop a comprehensive corporate social responsibility policy in Pakistan specifically to cater with this so as the money that the companies are buying here, the companies are making here by producing electricity, as most of the investment in Iraq, Kashmir and Pakistan is now from the foreign funding project. So they are making huge amount of sum here, but in return they are not paying as much as they should pay for the community upkeep. So in my personal opinion, we must have a standardized, or you can say at a national level, we should have a corporate social responsibility policy so as the local population should feel that they are part of the project. Because energy that we produce here in Kashmir goes into the national grid and then comes back and then we buy it back. So we as a Kashmir use a very small amount of energy, like 4 to 500 megawatt is only requirement. And the hydropower projects that we are in process making are more than 5,000 megawatts, and we are already producing more than 2,500 megawatts of energy for Pakistan. So, in my personal opinion, we need to address this issue on different basis. That people of Iraq Kashmir should be the ones who get the energy first of all, then it should be redistributed among other people in Pakistan, so as the people should face the ownership of the energy that they're producing. Secondly, there was a talk about the solar and biofuels. Iraq Kashmir is a huge potential in the southern area for the solar and biofuels because most of the people depend on the cattle that they survive on in the southern region. And I think that there is huge potential in this aspect as well. If we can build the solar plants in Meerpur, Mumbai, and these areas, these are very good areas where we can develop these projects. Mm, there was another important thing that I just want to raise here that the e-flow studies that we are doing for the construction of hydropower projects are not up to date. And for example, we take a project at Kohala, or we take the hydropower project. So major chunk of the water is diverted, and a large area was kept dry for a very long time period. So when you do this, you personally basically accept the fact that you will kill all the living beings who were surviving in this river. So in my personal opinion, the e-flow studies, there must be a minimum benchmark or a single procedure or a single formula that should be applied for e-flow studies. Different hydropower projects apply different models for their personal benefits, for the maximization of the money that they're spending there. So, in my personal opinion, the consultancies that we are taking, I would say that we must improve the standard of the consultancy regarding the inflow studies, regarding the biodiversity studies, and regarding different other studies, because most of the BPAs in Pakistan, in my opinion, don't have exactly the same amount of information or the same amount of expertise that are required to lead these such huge projects, like 1200 megawatt hydropower projects, like huge hydropower projects. So these are the few points that I want to raise from last Kashmir, and I'm looking forward for this board. Azad Kashmir has a very vibrant department of development of electricity, and we produce different projects less than 50 megawatts. My personal opinion is that international donors must come here for the investment in small hydropower projects and for the uplift of the community at the same level, so as we can create green jobs and also uplift the economy of this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you for touching upon some other segments of the aspects which are of high importance in HKH region. I think we'll have a quick um, a round of introduction. I would like to request to give a quick introduction to Mr. Amir Zafar Durrani, who have just joined us online. And being a sort of, again, shop floor kind of person and having in-depth understanding of all these regions in which he has already worked a lot, his organization. I'll be looking forward to his insightful comments to be bring on record for this specific session on opportunities and challenges for energy sector in HKH. Over to you, Amir sir.
Thank you very much. It's been, sorry about joining a bit late. I am still trying to adjust to various zones of time that I'm coming from. So I just got back to Pakistan yesterday. First and foremost, I actually was just going to start with what I was listening from HK, the gentleman who was submitting the recommendations from HK. While I do agree on the quality of consultancy and the fact that essentially every time we put together a large hydropower project, we per se, the way the life happens, the way the allocations work, the consultants work, everything is shown feasible, everything is, so essentially what is not done is really a real-time environmental impact, not just of the location, but also the impact on the overall system, not just of the region, but also of Pakistan. I think for AJK, for example, and I think it's a good point to start with, is AJK already provides more than 6 to 7,000 megawatt surplus of what it needs for itself to Pakistan, right? Essentially, I think the question that we need to be asking for future in AJK, just like we need to ask in GP, just like we need to ask in Chitral areas, especially North Chitral, is that, are we actually going to keep Pakistani communities and Pakistani people waiting on a central grid? Is the central grid really the way to proceed? Do we really want to put up large hydropower projects in these fragile ecosystems of Pakistan? And I think the answer to that, to some of us, and I also see a lot of people that I know who actively work and have been working much longer in these regions than myself, I would actually like to say that the answer to some of us is very apparent and has been apparent since, almost a decade and a half ago, is that Pakistan needs to go towards a distributed grid. And we need to actually start looking at how do we actually promote DER in Pakistan, the seeds of which, amazingly, have been laid not now, 40, 50 years ago in Pakistan. And unfortunately, what I do see is that people who are actually trying to do independent distributed power production in these regions now have one or two issues that have come up in the last 10, 15 years. The first is these power plants are mostly hydro, right? They're hydro based. So one of the things that we have discovered in some of the studies, for example, we did a very detailed study for UNZA, for the Pakistan Power Irrigation Fund, of which I think Mr. Muzaffar is very well aware about. We found out that unless you go the hybrid route, you are bound to not be able to provide stable energy to communities in the region. Let me give you certain examples. Now, it's very easy to say that, let's put up solar in AJK, let's put up solar here. I think one of the things we discovered is the weakness of actually, number one, site location. So site location is done more on community driven. There's only two compulsions that happen. One is where the community stays, it's feasible to put. Some studies are made, but not a detailed amount of studies. So for that, actually, we have created a way forward, which is, for example, we now know that for universities like NUS in Pakistan, we have the capacity through the GIS department to do something beyond what the engineers call the frequency intensity duration curve. So going beyond the victims, you can now go and get satellite imagery without actually buying it and analyze what I can call the rise and fall of a particular water channel, a particular river, a particular stream over the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, right? So you can actually see the flood patterns and you can things you do see in these hydro plants is one, they are poorly designed. Second, that often, like in these recent floods in Japan and also up in GB, you saw a lot of these plants will actually be more away. The second thing, which we're going from there is these plants, because of being hydro and water in nature, not only have daily ebb and flow, but they also have seasonal ebb and flow, and therefore the communities are thinking that we're not better to have a much larger hydropower plant rather than actually focusing on these what I call 1 to 5 megawatt type plants or a series of them spread across the mountains. The answer to that is again poor planning. Second part of that is poorly integrating what is now possible, and I think this is a very important area for us to start looking into. We have been in many discussions with NEPRA. I think Asad is very well aware of that over the last 2 years since COVID, where we've had many webinars showing that given the switching gear now available, there is no reason why you cannot marry bio, wind, solar, plus even start creating storage. And now there is no reason why we cannot look at pump storage, because pump storage is something that Germans are using. I think the world's largest storage of such kind has recently been put up somewhere in Europe, and I'm getting old, so I don't know the exact name, I need to look it up. It's about 700 megawatts of pump storage that has been created. So I think the important thing, the second point I want to make, first is improve your planning, improve your design for these mini hydros, and try a second to make sure that you get into hybrid arrangements such that you have storage and you are able to maintain a continuous supply of energy, the quality of energy or electricity that is required by the country. The third thing, and which I think is very, very, very important, is the payback. And I think, unfortunately, the direction that GB is being taken into, the direction that some of these communities are being taken into are again IPP type arrangements. And I think I see Shah up there, if my eyes serve me right, this is not at all feasible. It's like, putting good money after bad. Pakistan's, and which people call circular, I don't call it circular, there ain't nothing circular about our circular debt. Our power sector debt is just blocking, it's just out of control, and we all know it. There is no way in recent next 5 years, any government, barring some serious fiscal tightening, will ever get control of this. Now, why would somebody present 300 megawatts of power in the mountains and say, take or pay, or for example, that we are going to give you a fixed rate? I think that the whole idea of tariffs should now be given up to the community. We need to move up into the model where the communities really own shares in these power plants in these areas. It happens in Europe, it happens in Japan. Why cannot it happen in Pakistan? Now look, the other countries that are doing exactly the bad side mistakes like us, take South Africa, a great example. And if you go and look at Eskom in South Africa, which I recently was at, you see the same disasters. Their debt is even 3 times ours, and they just don't know how to manage it. And basically, this is again a country where community-based power exists, yet the government insists on forcing people into buying electricity the way they want to sell electricity through large power plants, whether they be solar, etc. So the third part, actually, and I think this needs a lot of homework, is that communities need to be brought into the management, shareholding, whether through local sport organizations at the UC level or beyond that. I think we have to think about. Fourth point, and this is going to be the last part of my intervention, maybe I'll provide some more once I hear other colleagues as we go along. And the last part is, energy electricity. Pakistan has a very strange phenomenon. Please look at the energy utilization curves and look at gas and look at electricity. Both you will find we are lopsided. We use, in fact, we subsidize gas for our household consumers. We do the same thing. Our household use, in other words, our so-called feel good use, or what I call our luxury use, is more than most countries in the region. 30% or 60% of electricity is consumed by households. If you look at any good country that is able to pay back its power, especially with the rising cost of power, most of this utilization we need to involve the communities into some sort of understanding that this power is not to run or to suddenly provide creature comforts. It's to actually be productive. So I'm going to leave it at productivity, livelihood, because I think there is a huge relationship between ability to pay back and productivity and all this whole game, which I call it the system design in a mountain community. And I think it would be bad to not say and add one additional thing, which is that the idea of the central grid is also one of energy insecurity. Please understand that the world is trying to now move towards energy security. So by actually providing for larger grids in today's technology, we are actually making our areas more energy insecure. So I think I'll leave it there, Hassan, and with your permission, if you need other inputs, I'm going to be online. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And specifically, you have the points which you have mentioned are quite pertinent, and some have already been deliberated. But nevertheless, I can the key word or terminology which perhaps you also presented at SARC platform was the energy poverty nexus that needs to be addressed in this specific thing. And with that, I be moving towards our last speaker, Mr. Nafis from Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund, to for his presentation and remarks, and be there all my colleagues which are participating online. So and if there are any questions, we can please note it down so we can have your inputs or queries taken after this last presentation.
So I am presenting my name is Mohammed Ilyas. My name is Mohammed Ilyas, and I am also working in the renewable energy unit of Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund. Uh, just introduction of PPF. PPF is established in 1998 by the government, and but established under the Company Ordinance 1984, and working for the poverty reduction is a primary financial organizations. PPF is working in different sectors like infrastructure, education, health, and also the renewable energy. So, with the help of initially with the help of World Bank as a donor, we implemented many hydropower in the northern regions. I will talk only about the northern regions because the today discussion is hydropowers, and otherwise we have implemented others biomass projects like windmills, solar energy, and hydropowers. Up till now, since the inception, PPF implemented around 100 plus mini macro hydropower projects in the northern areas, which mainly include the GB, Chatral, Upper Dir, Swat, like these regions. It is around 13.5 megawatt installed capacity. We have worked with different partners like HRSP, SRSP, and NRSP to implement these projects. Major partners were for the initial phases of the hydropower was HRSP in the Chatral and the GB regions. But recently, we have implemented five hydropowers, which is macro hydropowers, and the AKRS in the Chatral and Upper Nile with the help of SRSP and AKRSP, and that is very successful model. We These were macro hydropower project ranges from the 36 kilowatt to 306 kilowatt, which included three hydropowers in the Chakral regions, one in the Upper Dir, which is 200 kilowatt, and one is a small pilot project, 36 kilowatt, in the Unair area. So these projects were supported by the KfW, German funding, and we adopted a design criteria to design these projects on the minimum requirement or the minimum flow in the stream or in the river, so that we address the shortage of the power supply during the winter season. Today we got a question that what the people face the energy crisis problem in the winter season or the freezing season. So we adopted a minimum design criteria, the availability of water during the winter or the freezing season, so that the people do not face the energy shortage during the winter season, and throughout the year the people get the required power supply during the winter. So that was the our adaptation to address the shortage or the a gap of the energy during the winter season. So now we are not facing, our community are not facing that problems. Secondly, we adopted the standard designs for the, no doubt these were the macro hydro projects, but we adopted the standards of high-tech technology, high-tech projects like mega projects. We followed the standard civil structures like there we designed settling basins, gravel traps, proper intake to get water without debris. And if there is a debris, so it may be grabbed at the gravel trap level, at the settling basin, and at last at the four-way level. So we are not facing that issue to that because it is certain that in our upper area, due to the high gradient, there is there is sets in the water which ultimately affect the turbine after certain years, 5 or 10 years. So we design in such a way that we get minimum silt in the water at the turbine level, and we don't have that the turbine must be eroded. So we design it for proper 20 to 30 year life of the equipments. These projects were completed in 2019, and since then they are operational. The community are running properly, they are maintaining. But there are certain challenges as well that our other colleagues mentioned, that like the tariff collections, people are not agree to pay off the tariff which is required. Like if I mentioned that we suggested 10 rupees per unit, so either the people cannot afford it or they are not willing to pay it. So there is these are the challenges in our community level. Recently, we designed a project for the Hunza, and Mr. Amir also mentioned they have conducted a detailed survey. So based on that survey, we designed 3 megawatt project for the Hunza, especially for the Aliabad, to address the, and especially the environmental issue that you mentioned that there were a lot of smoke during the summer days or the summer days when the people are coming, and the hotels are using generators. Every small or big hotels, either it is shop, it is a small business, they are using generators. So there is a lot of smokes and noises. So we, especially to address this issue, we designed 3 megawatt project and to be implemented in the Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad is the region which sir also mentioned. It's an exemplary example for all of us to sustain projects. Ahmedabad in 2008 we implemented with the help of HRSP 50 kilowatt project. Now it is 450 kilowatt. The people by themselves they upgraded this, and they are sustaining and operating the system beyond 12 3 years, and they are neither providing to the Ahmedabad but the Aliabad as well. So we selected a site and designed 3 megawatt with the initial cost of $6 million. But unfortunately, due to the lack of policies, we could not agree with the GB government, and even GB government write us a letter to not participate in that region because they have already committed with the IPS. So, but it is a very discouraging letter, and they have not give us an opportunity to work in other area as well, because Hunza was not our target. We are working for the whole people, for the whole poverty, for the whole at the grassroots level throughout the country. So these were it is just a brief introduction of the PPAs and their interventions, and we are still striving to address and the poverty and energy crisis in Pakistan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, a very good insight to look at the poverty aspect rather than geographical boundaries becoming a barrier and other institutional barriers come into the way of smooth implementation of the projects. So for with this, I think is if there are any further inputs from our online participants or their questions, we will be concluding this session. And I think that during this, it has been an interactive session, and everybody spoke open-heartedly and gave very good pertinent points, and which have been noted as well by our relevant focal persons over here and online. So with this, with the consent of everyone, we would be concluding this ongoing session, roundtable session one, and with your permission again, going to switch over and hand over to Mr. Obad by skipping one of the segments in between, and so that we conclude in a single go this twinning this the second session together with this one. So over to Mr. Obad and his reviews and remarks on this thing. I think Koser was trying to raise her hand. If there are any inputs from your end, or during the next session, you can take.
Yeah, sure. Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. I think it's been a wonderful discussion. We're also coming up again with a lot of models for the MHPPs as well, and it's coming as a very obvious solution, particularly to address the needs of the HKH region in Pakistan. So, just around that point, I think just SDP also recently conducted a very extensive survey of almost 200 households in Hunza, GB, and some areas of Chitral. I think even the communities, they're also very much they have accepted this whole situation. They're also very much satisfied with that, because if I just give two numbers, almost from 200 households, almost 70% of the community members actually told us that they are actually very much satisfied with this has actually improved the energy access a lot. There has been very much improvements. Many of these regions are providing access to the schools. The priority electricity is being provided to many schools and health facilities as well. So yeah, just to link up with one of the next session, I think we'll be joined by yes, we are already joined by Ms. Kausar Bano, and she'll be giving a brief presentation on gender integration in the policy in the HKH region. So yeah, over to you, Kausar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I needed to share my presentation. If host could let me share presentation, please.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. Meanwhile, I am so grateful to SDPI for arranging this session, very important session. We were supposed to be there physically. Unfortunately, due to political turmoil, we are not able to sit with you all. It was amazing indeed to be there or here, whatsoever circumstances are. So great to see everyone, especially our mentors from Lead Pakistan, Gafar Saab and Khalil Saab, and all of you. I'm so grateful for your patience and presence here. So, am I able to share the presentation?
Yes, you should be.
Is it visible?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible.
Thank you very much. Well, today I will speak about the role of gender equality for a just, sustainable, and climate resilient energy transition. And as you all know that in ICIMOD, we work around all these these sectors, as well as on a broader level, we are working on climate change. Within climate change, I'm responsible to look at gender in social inclusion perspective good understanding as well as enough literature that climate change is making the communities of HKH areas vulnerable. Among all these communities, particularly women are more vulnerable due to the existing circumstances. And this climate change is widening the gender gap and deepening the inequalities due to limited access, as we all know that, access to and control over productive resources and limited mobility, particularly in some areas where we are working. For instance, if I talk about HKH level, so we do have countries as well as areas where women are having very issues of limited mobility as well as voice in decision making. So just to give a gist of what is the situation in our HKH area, and when we come to the mountainous areas of HKH, since we are working on 8 countries, so there the situation of mountains are almost similar, but in some areas it is more worsened. The situation is very difficult for us. So as we all know that more than 50% of communities are living under poverty, and energy poverty is one of it. And also we do have a very limited access to centralized transmission networks. We also have issues of lack of access to clean energy, particularly for cooking and other household chores. Due to this, women are more suffering because they are the ones who arrange all these at household level. But when it comes to the all the debates around gender equality and gender energy, then we don't see much of the nuances from the grassroots. So we all know that due to social construct within, I'm actually bringing all these nuances from a recent study we conducted with development women across South Asia and HH countries. So we did this assessment in 10 countries, and gender and energy was one of the main topics within that assessment. So I will be presenting my findings and realities from that assessment. So as we all know that women sit at home just because of the social construct and shortage of clean energy um, makes their lives more difficult. And this energy poverty creates time poverty, ill health, and increased drudgery. And also it affects employment, education, and other activities, especially due to not availability of clean energy at household level. Their health and their well-being is affected. Not only the women's but children's well-being is also affected. In the long run, when we see the impacts of all this, it also affects the climate because when we see in buildings even right now, we can really figure out that how women at home are surviving and how it is impacting the climate of the area and surrounding. So we also found that due to collection of wood for long distances, whether it is Pakistan or elsewhere, in all HKH countries, we witnessed and we found that women are the ones who collect wood from distances to meet the energy needs. When we say energy, we usually go for transmission lines and we usually think about lighting only or using it as a like in the industries, but we often neglect this part. And when we see that who is responsible for meeting the energy needs at household level, then we see that women are the ones who collect all these wood from distances, and we have had experiences of gender-based violence because they venture alone to the highest peaks of the mountains, even in very traditional areas. I was placed in Asto, one of the districts of Delhi, Pakistan, where I saw that not only women but the girls are the ones who bring all these wood from the mountains, and the mechanism was not into policy. So they were they often face these kind of issues. Also, we have found here from our research and assessment that women's lack of agency in household decision making often results family failure to transition from traditional fuel to clean cooking energy. And also, we have seen that there is women agency. In fact, in some places, there women use clean energy options. So actually, in that assessment, just to bring a regional perspective within this arena, when we saw the policies, institutions, and practices from across the region, when we say, I heard in Kush Himalaya, HKH region, I was so happy. At least we have a very well inbuilt discourse that we think about and we act according to regional and national level. So when we talk about all these HKH areas, when we assess the policies, because normally there are institutions which work with communities from NGO perspectives and other donor agencies, but when we see the policies of the governments, then we saw that mostly for all of the policies linked to energy, they often lack women perspectives or gender perspectives within the policy paradigm. They often, all the policies we assess within the HKH countries in South Asia, they usually take women as a passive. Passive means if there is anything planned, it will be indirectly that or directly will benefit women, but it doesn't mention that it will or it will create opportunities for women to venture into different activities, for instance, getting benefit from the electricity or energy sector actively, for instance, for their well-being or living conditions betterment. We also came to know that women labor force participation in all HKH countries in overall and particularly in energy sector is very, very low. You will also agree that when we saw the institutions at government level, there we found that all HKH countries and South Asian countries had a very minimum and at lowest positions were the women. And also, when we checked about the technical arena of HKH countries, there we also found that all these technical and engineering areas were dominated by men due to even we do have amazing labor force participation in Nepal all around South Asia. Nepal is having 78% women, but still when we check or we assess the technical areas, there we found that even in Nepal also women are having issues, cultural and societal barriers to venturing into technical positions as well as areas. And when we check the Pakistan situation, India is lagging behind, but with only 20% in labor force participation, particularly in energy sector. This I have got from recent survey from World Bank, and Pakistan is second least with 25%. So when we see the opportunities, there we found that renewable energy is an area where we can increase women participation as well as benefits for women if they are planned according to the needs, priorities, and according to the priorities of the women and vulnerable groups. When we look into, I wanted to zoom into Pakistan situation in our assessment report. I will share in your emails that we zoom into Pakistan as well, where we have to assess all the policies, institutions, and activities of the countries, and Pakistan is included. There we see that 26% of Pakistan population is still not having access to electricity even for lighting. 51% is not having clean cooking and heating facilities. And also in rural population, a mountainous population, there we saw that 68% of rural population uses biomass, means it is really affecting climate as well as health issues for women. So 62% use it for heating and washing. So then we found that there is a need of alternative renewable and clean sources, particularly in remote and mountainous areas of Pakistan. If I talk about my own area, since I belong to Roomza, there in the river, they live partially. So there we see that, especially in this time, people are having 20 hours of load shedding just for lighting purposes. So there we can see that the disparity, the level of disparity among these areas between mountainous to plains and urban to rural also. So at least these AC mode also bring the nuances from mountainous regions which are really not into mainstream. But I'm really happy that I hear some of the nuances from the area thanks to SDPI. When I look into the policies of Pakistan, also the energy policy particularly, I focus on energy policy. I'm really happy that it is in process of change, but still there I saw that it's very gender neutral. Gender neutral means it talks about people, it talks about the issues of community, but it doesn't talk about women issues or women their active engagement in activities related to energy, or it doesn't focus on empowerment of women through this energy sector. And also, when we look into the institutional mechanisms of Pakistan, particularly in HKH countries, also there we see that there is a huge gap and clear disparities in institutions as well, particularly at decision-making levels. We saw that in experience, and we also found in our assessment that women are not there at decision-making levels. Although we do have constitution, we do have all the other entities plus gender reform action plan in place, but I didn't see any integration of these policies with energy policy. So what could be the way forward there? I will suggest that we need to integrate all these concerns, all these issues into policy and institutional mechanism as well as in practices. So to give, not only to give women voice in planning processes, in policies and programs, but we need to formulate mechanisms to ensure maintenance of gender disaggregated data. It is first and foremost to see that whether women are benefiting directly or not. And also we need a gender sensitive assessment. It should be part of policy, not a program of donor agency. So when we will include all these into our policy, then we will see a real change at the grassroots level. And also we need to guarantee meaningful participation of networks and women and marginalized groups in policy dialogue. Although they will not speak English, they will not speak Urdu, but we need to ensure that they are part of all these processes at local, regional, and national level, as well as international level. And also we need to conduct different assessments. When it comes to knowledge creation, I can hear a lot about Hunza, I can hear a lot about Kashmir, I can hear a lot about KPK areas, particularly HKH areas, or Balochistan. There we see that the data gap and knowledge gap is very high. And not even we were having another assessment for collecting the data. There we see that for Kashmir, Greater Pakistan, and all these HKH countries, even data regarding education was not available. So we went for extra efforts to gather all this data. So we need to collect data. We need to generate studies, and STPI is one of the very great potential for us to bring all these level. So I'm really looking forward to see the participation of women in energy sector, active participation in energy sector in future. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Kosabaum. Yes, wonderful insights and wonderful recommendations here as well. So I would just actually ask all for speakers here if they do have any suggestions or comments on that, particularly to the point that was highlighted. If you could just also add the public sector representatives, that is perhaps we might need to integrate gender policies perhaps with the energy sector policies. So if anyone has any comments or suggestions or in any being practiced models in which the women are actually participating in energy sector as well, particularly in the HKH region.
Just one example, just an example, in community based, in the recent, we call utility companies, we have found that many women organizations and women have also purchased share. They come into the board, and at community level, these things are happening. But I think it is more at policy level, which I think was primarily highlighted. So we hope that we can listen from the policy.
Thank you very much. I think when we talk about the private sector, so maybe because the private sector participation always revolves around the money. So this kind of activities can be dovetailed. But by the way, perhaps under the current policies, the expert haven't think about this aspect particular, and there needs to be think about uh, to make this aspect financially viable, and obviously that can be linked to some businesses which uh, the ladies have been running in the past. Previously they were waving the cleans, etc. So now the the technology has very advanced now. So maybe now they can run small sewing community based systems for the area for which there could be a subsidization of solar panels from the government or at soft loans from the banks, etc. But really it is appreciated that it needs to be looked into.
Yes, thank you so much. I think Amir Zafar Saab wants to add something. So over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and with due deference to this, and of course, thank you for upping the ante. I really like and Shikham ki tasveer thi. I mean, the thing is, we are now in the 21st century, and I think it's important that while some of us are still living in the 18th, women need to be integrated straight from the provision down all the value chain, and not just in businesses. And the answer to that, let me give you a small story. I see that I think Masud Mulk has gone, but Siraj Mulk Saab, I had a chat with him in 2019 in Chitral. So, they were sort of the early pioneers, and I think Zafar Saab, you know the story, but I thought for the audience, let's tell them the story. So, they put up a small, I don't know, 8 kVA, 10 kVA hydropower plant, and this was done through connecting water channels along the ridge of these mountains in Chitral. And, they put on a pump and everything, and, it used to still down. And slowly we realized that, at night, the light would actually not go. Initially, it would start going, but then, the men found that the light is running on all evening. It turned out that because the women needed to watch the drama, particular drama at 8 o'clock in the evening, they went and made sure that the channel was desilted all by themselves. So they understood the whole chain and actually kept that system alive. So the motivation here that I think we need to understand is beyond livelihood. For women, it's health, it's childbearing, it's nutrition, it's early childhood development. The Rajasa was sitting at the back, this pet subject. We have been discussing how to connect electricity, better sustainable electricity provision to early childhood development, before actually in the when improve nutrition for mothers who are pregnant. I think that the example, GB Water and Power Department, and not through quotas, by simple competition, because there are equal number of electrical and IT engineers and mechanical engineers coming out as women as there are men. So, I mean, the thing is, we need to really promote this upstream development and integrating into the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ravita, for saying this. I really regard all this. We do have quite a lot of interventions from World Bank, which I didn't mention, or UNDP or USA across Pakistan, and there are interventions of AKRSP, AKDN, and other NGOs. But here I wanted to focus on policy. So we could have at least policy and all these donations, whether it is like donors there or whether it is coming from on the private sector, it should come under that policy. And energy policy should be an umbrella to cover all these. Rather, we are doing in bits and pieces, and when we see at the national level or HKH level, there we see huge gaps. To fill these gaps, we need a policy intervention, and it is right time to think and bring all these nuances into policy since it is in making. And I really request each and everyone to be like our ambassadors to include our voices into policy. So this will be a great milestone for us. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Kausa. I think this has been substantially addressed. Yeah. So now, just moving ahead, I think perhaps we have very much summed up our second roundtable discussion as well, which was actually more focused towards renewable energy policy and regulatory landscape in the region as well. So yeah, that's pretty much covered as well. But still, just I think perhaps I would like to again pitch a very question to the public sector, particularly from different provinces, that how do they feel that, do they think particularly there are any regulatory or policy challenges or perhaps policy gaps that do exist, like we just talked about a lot about GB policy as well, which is again a bit of a challenge for them. So again, like I mean, I think perhaps the areas which have not been slightly touched upon as the what are actually the regulatory challenges with the provincial governments actually think in accessing the finance, perhaps, or again in what challenges perhaps they're actually facing to address this energy access solution. So just again, initially go to the government of Balochistan for initially addressing this question. Over to you, Azizan. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Basically, there are three policies federal government is running parallelly. IGSAP, which is I think 10 years plan, and National Energy Policy 2021, and third is ARE policy, which is conflicting at large with each other policies. They are not addressing the main concerns of the mountainous area. They basically 21 policy 21 is least cost based. If we want to develop these mountainous areas, it doesn't come on under the category of least cost. It requires a huge capital. You will not just focus on the finances and least cost based. First, this is the method is, I think, it's not inconsistent with the development of mountainous regions, least cost based. And second, the policy which I see is that though in electricity policy 21 they have just gave the autonomy to the provinces at some extent, but they didn't fully give autonomy to the provinces, because in section 5 of 2001 21, I think, national electricity policy, it comes if there arise any dispute between provinces and federal, then the federal policy prevails. It means if we just want to align or just connect the provincial L and transmission and dispatch and transmission line with the national grids, absolutely there arises a dispute. It means federal what the federal tell us, or just they fixed us a tariff, and we have to just abide by this. And the second thing is this: when we connect the provincial uh, company or just any power plant with the national grids, they have to just issue the license. Federal have to issue the license. It means the autonomy of provinces is just I think It's not in the in its pure sense that they have just gave the autonomy. Third, I think there is IGSAP. There are the strategic projects in IGSAP. They haven't issued the mountainous areas in development because strategic projects means they have to develop it on priority basis. There isn't any project of Balochistan or KP in this strategic projects. It must be included in the strategic projects to give the availability to the mountainous or uh, I can say the poverty ridden or energy deficient areas. I think
Yes, thank you. This makes sense. Even I think perhaps we will collectively come back to
Yeah.
Munawar Iqbal Sahab, but again, before that, we would also like to hear from Ali Jabbar Sahab if he has to add something further.
Thank you very much. About challenges, we have already mentioned, and Manwar Saab has also highlighted the GB power policy is the main issue. And the other thing is that Gilgit Baltistan acts like a province. It is not constitutional province. So, in absence of the policy, investors hesitate to invest in the area for energy projects. And the second thing is our we are not connected to national grid. Again, private sector hesitate to invest in the area because we have no connectivity with the rest of the region, country, and area. So where they sell their produce, and the connectivity is next issue, and the third one is the opportunities that Gilgit-Baltistan government has approved Public-Private Partnership Act. It is approved policy and IPS. I think IPS we have negotiated and approved a project with IPS 3.2.4 or 4.2 megawatt. That is in field due to some ground difficulties or land issues. It is yet not started, and private investors are encouraged to invest in the region through this public-private partnership act and policy. Thank you.
Gee, thank you. I think perhaps we could also first hear from Umar Saab about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Regarding policy, we have no such standard policy for the alternate clean energy solution of all red areas in Pakistan. Also, we have also absence of regulation policies and mechanisms. No focus on the technology transfer and enhancement of the local manufacturing industry. Capacity issues are designed in the fabrications of the local manufacturers, and also the lack of repair and surface facilities and workshop for the local communities in the nearby areas.
Yes, thank you so much. I think perhaps this has actually provided a good enough platform for if Munawar Iqbal Sahab wants to address any of that, and then we'll move towards Dr. Hamdan.
Thank you very much. Uh, Actually, every territory has its own kind of issues and challenges. As Mr. Aziz talked about Balochistan, so Balochistan is a grid connected area. National grid is there, but still there are two actually options available in the policy. From the policy perspective, first I would highlight that as he spoke about National Electricity Policy 2021, there is Electricity Policy 2015. These are the and RE policy as well. So these are the three power policies, and dovetailed with an indicator generation expansion plan, the IGSEP, that is the fourth document. So in these documents, all the four documents, the provincial governments have already given adequate autonomy to develop their power projects. And obviously, these are dictated by our constitution under Article 157. If the province want to develop a project within the project, province, there is no bar on that. No need to come to federal government at all. However, if they want to get the grid connectivity, then again there are two options. If it is public sector money, so there is no need to get any kind of implementation agreement or guarantee for the government. It is just a energy purchase agreement between our power purchaser and the respective government of the province. So obviously there is adequate, cushion available, but the matter comes when there is a private sector investment. So obviously private sector investor does not come till the time the government of Pakistan, which has the sovereign authority, gives guarantee and guarantee of the power purchaser and the province at all. So obviously, specifically talking about this mountainous areas, so mostly these are, uh, if these are off-grid, to still they does not come under any policy, so they need to be separately handled. From the perspective of GB, actually, as I earlier highlighted, so just to go little deeper in the policy, because I was the author of that policy, so I have included each and every mode which is possibly can be adopted within the GP's power supply. I mean, from if it is from the government to government, if it is from the government to private, if there is a private investor comes for the composite part of the project, say it generates, transmit, and uh, to distribute and collect the money by itself on the bills. Maybe that will be more easy for the masses where this kind of, the commercial kind of things are going on. Say somebody comes and install a project on Atabad Lake and gives energy to the Hunza Bazaar, and as I talked that they most of that area, perhaps I'm not much expert of that area, but as I visited last year, so I found that there is a deficiency in electricity. Otherwise, I could not have seen so many generators running in the shops. So I think if we focus should be that the power policy is approved and there has two options. If the government of GB wants to remain within the existing regime, it would be more easy. But obviously, as in AJK and rest of the provinces, the federal government has given autonomy. So obviously, it is the right of the GB government to get similar comfort as well. So if they start within the existing regime like AJK, and slowly they are also shift like AJK to get that subject with them. So it will be little easy part, and a policy can be approved within a few months because no need of any change in GB order. So obviously, we have to wait from the private sector perspective and participation in GB for the approval of that policy, and for that matter, we have to live with the existing regime and approval mechanism. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Perfectly, that makes sense. And yeah, just to highlight one more thing is there's all this discussion, the challenges we have highlighted, the different modes of MHPPs we have discussed over here, and definitely mainly the policy challenges. So, and what action marks we have discussed, they will all be summarizing into perhaps a 2 to 3 page policy document that will be the first thing which will be forwarded to all of you as well. So, yeah, so I think this also gives us very good, perhaps, a platform to take interventions from Dr. Hassan Daud. But Dr. Hassan Daud, just to bring you, a big update on the discussions we actually discussed extensively the challenges which all the provincial governments have been facing, and a lot of the CSOs which models are being operated to again. The main idea over here is that how can we actually improve the energy access? And being you, you all, Dr. Hassan does not need an introduction. You have been in CEO of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Business Board of Investment and Trade before that as well. So we just wanted to perhaps hear from you what your overall interventions are and what you think should be perhaps the way forward. Yeah, from this point.
Thank you very much. Let me give you my relatively newer introduction. I'm also the senior advisor to SGPI on several issues, including the blue economy. Do we have foreigners here, or it's all local, so that I can speak with my heart and in my local language?
We do have some who have joined us from Nepal, the ICI team.
Okay, brilliant. So I mean, it embarrasses me when we at 2022 October, we're talking of excess of energy in one of the two most important regions of our country. I mean, I feel ashamed, frankly. This is my starting point. And we're talking about access to energy, which is humans' right. I mean, if we talk of access to energy, access to internet in this time and age, I think we've faltered somewhere. I know Munawar Saab, I worked with Munawar Saab, I worked with Ali Jabbar Saab and all my colleagues sitting here. I think the policy articulation and how in the political economy framework we develop policies and how we talk about probably socio-economic development and human rights and rights to so many other things. I think right of electricity, right of utilities and right of internet perhaps also should be included in human rights documents wherever they are, and they should be part of the fundamental framework, because when you include them it becomes easy. I couldn't agree more with Munawar Saab in terms of the policy. He and his team and some of the other colleagues working in power division and other aspect of the energy sector have actually worked hard on providing novelty to the ideas through which we can generate the kind of energy that we need. But let me just focus on Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as a case study. That would be a case study, and perhaps you can learn pertinent. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as board of as the head of board of investment, my first deliverable that I set for myself when I went there was to bring in investment in sustainable projects. And when we talk of sustainable projects, we talk of energy and perhaps so I think we have, and we were able to attract few investors, and I know for sure how many Chinese have actually approached GB government and also AJK government, because I've been working on CPEC, I've led CPEC, and also have discussed with all Chinese colleagues. And I've just returned back from Beijing just 2 weeks back, and I had extensive discussion with scholars there on now. Waste to energy, solar energy, and all other forms of alternate energy have been discussed for regions like this. We have even have off-grid solutions available for provision of energy to GB, AJK, and some northern part of KP and also Balochistan. But why is still at this point we are discussing access to energy? There is something wrong somewhere, and I think the reason where I find fault is perhaps from policy articulation to its actual manifestation. There's a huge gap which people sitting in this room and perhaps online need to bridge. I think at local government level, and the role of local government is extremely important when we talk of provision of energy and when we talk of invest, because when investor goes to these areas they find huge challenges, because access to GB still remains a challenge. NOC sir is a huge challenge for an investor, and same is the case for AJK and Balochistan, some part of Balochistan. आप ये देखिए, and today we are talking again, and let me refer to CPEC. We've still not been able to have Mopandas, we've still not been able to have Mirpur, we've still not been able to have Bostan. And all these three SEZs for their energy part had alternate energy resources. Solar energy, the investors were ready to at least provide in the initial phase around 20 megawatt of energy, and then incrementally growing to perhaps 100 megawatt. Gwadar, for that matter, still coal, no coal, coal, no coal. This discussion, 2013 it started, and today perhaps the year. So I think, first of all, I would encourage, let me give you a roadmap, sir, if you allow, and then perhaps we can have following discussion to that. I think, first of all, I would encourage SDPI to have more discussions on this and have discussions on smaller yet important provinces of Pakistan. Just imagine if you choke GB and if you choke AJK, our water will stop. If you choke GB and AJK are access to China with stock. So this is the kind, and of course Balochistan, Gwadar and all. So this is first of all in our policy articulation. Any policy made in urban centers and capitals of our country should be first of all and foremost we should have uh, these three provinces as our front runner for policy. Secondly, for any policy that you make, whether it's a fine, and I've been saying this and I'll say it again, and even at the cost of repetition, for any commercial counselors and also invite embassy officials to your respective regions and demonstrate them the scarcity of energy that you have because any dirt in any region is an opportunity for another for an investor. So I as a person who's worked on investment for last 15 years at least with I find huge opportunity in Balochistan, huge opportunity in GB and huge opportunity in India. But I think when I talk to people in China, they're still not aware. They know about Punjab, they know about KP, they know about Sindh perhaps, but about GB, what's the potential? Because the population numbers actually invite investment to this. And if it's not the population number in terms of investment, the poverty actually invites investment to these regions. I think in terms of any socio-economic agenda that we take, we should have these three regions on part of our country as all the deliverables should be for these three, whether it's in energy, whether it's in vocational training, whether in any other areas, perhaps in CPEC, if we have a grant of $1 billion US for 3 years, sizable amount should go to these three provinces because if poverty is alleviated in these three areas, the security will get better, the access to China and rest of the regions will get better, including KP because it provides access to Afghanistan. And that would have a transformational effect in the overall scheme of things when we talk of economy. I always say that we should promote homegrown discussion, homegrown expert. And also, when we talk of homegrown, we must remember GB, AJK, and Balochistan is also part of our home. And when we will consider this, our manifestation on these provinces, on these regions of our country will be very easy. I again end on a very sad note that on end November this year, we are talking about access of energy to these regions. We are talking about connectivity to the national grid, which we have been talk. If you get a video link or a video recording of any discussion that has happened in the last 10 years on similar topic, the end note will be the same. But I think I would encourage each one of us stakeholders sitting here. I take this responsibility on behalf of SGPI. I know my friend Munawar will support me on this. Let's join hands, and also all the investors who are here. Let's join hands and support this these three regions with huge potential, huge water, huge sunlight, huge number in terms of population to so that we can support this part of the government. I hope I was not sounding like a politician.
No, thank you so much, DA. Yes, please, Mr. Saab. Yeah, over to you.
I think those are very, very valid points. Some things I would like to emphasize. One, we keep talking about policies, but we don't talk about policy failures. It's the problem is really at the policy failure. I remember sitting on a donor mission, and one of the things was to come up with an agriculture policy at the end of it, of a 4 years project, and the agriculture policy was not there, and the donor mission was very agitated, but the secretary was of the idea that we can do it in one day and give it to you. The whole idea that policy is something, a good consultant would come in and put together, and it becomes a policy. And policy failure. Where do policy failures happen? Policy failures happen at the organizational level. At the organizational level is where all policies will fail, because the organizations that we have are not purposeful organizations. They're not there's no connection. If you have, for instance, PIDO in KP, there's no connection between the mission of that organization and what it does on the ground. There's no connection at all. And that's basic to, if you want to implement policy, to build up that connection. And how do you create, and the stress at the policy level is to copy these forms from the West, or from blueprints, or what is the best. How do we get functional organizations, not in terms of forms, in terms of what they are supposed to deliver? And I think it's very interesting. We've been able to do such a lot on small micro hydroelectricity, probably not the best, but a lot of it, and it has happened because the state has no policy over there. And that becomes a real advantage, because the state doesn't have a policy. You actually go in and you are able to do a lot of things. The moment the state comes up with the policy, you face policy failures, and it is not a risk. I think those things, we keep talking about policies, let's talk about policy failures.
I understand, sir, but I don't want to be devil's advocate here. All I can say is that I commit on behalf of SGPI, on my person, that when the government of GB, AJK, Balochistan would ask us, we will bring investors to your doorstep. We will bring investors who are keen, Chinese investors, I mean, because that's my niche. Chinese investors and perhaps donors from the agencies that are sitting here attending, and perhaps their extension from World Bank, UNDP, USAID. Because for me, sir, any agenda on poverty alleviation ends when you do not have electricity, when you do not have access to utility, gas, and you're cutting trees to make fuel. So, on my part and on behalf of SGPI, I can make this commitment today that we will bring investors to your doorstep. We will partner with you, and perhaps Amit Durrani is also here. We will bring investors to your doorstep. You set up a timelines for adjusting your policy, creating that pull factor for investors to come, and perhaps all of us can join hands together and bring this. All we can say, we can't just beat the past. We have to talk about future of this region, because the future is promising.
Yeah.
And also, I still remember, sir, we had this in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a 2 days extensive session where Urumchi's local government and all their investors came, sat here with GB government for 2 days. They extended their support. So we can still bring that, rope in them for our capacity building also. Even in terms of border management, we can arrange any training from the platform SGPI, from any other platform on border management and all. And let's move forward, sir. Piche, I think there is no point discussing.
Sorry. Just a small point. Thank you very much. As you mentioned, JK, investors, they prefer to go to those areas where there is business, there is money. Certainly, they would very much like to go. If I'm a businessman, I'll also go for money. But fortunately or unfortunately, the mountains we have less people. And then, as you said, if there is the numbers are less, and they can't make money there, they should go for power generation. Yeah, usko bhi chhod dejiye. Just for the sake of saving down country. Look at the floods. Oh, my friend, yeah, those guys sitting there, for the past 60 years, chalo, 50 saal mujhe yaad. यार 100 मेगावाट नहीं है, चाइनीज नहीं जा रहे हैं तो क्या करें भाई, खुद लगाओ. The government has put all their best whatever, and right now senior engineer sahab is here, chief sahab is here, hardly 100 megawatt. So just to save this livelihoods, this infrastructure down country, the life of the people, Yeah, put some investment there, my friends. And there are small examples, as I'm grateful, we put a lot of, I'm from Re-Energy, by the way. So, Elias has said ki Janab 3 megawatt, very nice, adding value addition of Ahmedabad, people, those small utilities, they have been, engineers was there, there is no कानून of supplying a privately generated bijli through a sarkari line. There was no कानून, bhai. So these guys, they came with exceptions. We are very grateful. So policy issues are there, practical lessons are there, learnings are there. Karimabad, hopefully by this 3 megawatt will be connected. Maybe they will reduce all the smokes and smokes or whatever. And then there are also those support programs, rural support programs. For example, SRSP. वो भाई बिजनेस मॉडल पे चला रहे हैं ना, वहाँ बड़े बड़े गांव में चला रहे हैं, पैसा is coming, tariff is increased. So we need to learn from them to expand or promote or to disseminate this business model. Please, if the Chinese are not coming, sir, पाकिस्तान से कुछ बंदे तो ले आओ, 100 मेगावाट तो डालो ना उसमें. Thank you.
जान के मान पाऊँ तो यार गवर्नमेंट से
नहीं, मैं I know it, sir, but लोग आपको जानते हैं ना, sir. टोपी आपके बहुत सारे हैं, तो you can convince them. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I think perhaps we could just move to Amir Durrani Saab. He raised his hand. So yeah, over to you, Amir Saab. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I want to pick up on the point that Masood Saab made, which I think is a very valid one. So having sat with him, Masood Saab remembers, I think it was a year back or maybe a year and a half at the UN, the very amazing facility that they've created, a hydro plant there, which, as he rightly put it, I mean, the absence of policy, my dear friends, is often a blessing in countries like ours. And I'll tell you why, because I think to some extent, again, Masood pointed out the very right thing. If you look at the ladder of policy, from policy, there is an assigned institution, and that produces procedures, that then employs human resource and administration to administer these policies and implement whatever is required. Now, if you look at it, nice policies and nice procedures you can cut and paste from anywhere in the world. You can create institutions that are nauseous, and that's precisely what's happening in Pakistan, that the government has crowded out almost any sphere of life by having too much government there. So the institutions, PO, great example. I want to give other examples, but obviously I don't want to be beaten up in the next meeting. So let's stop at PO. Let's go to the human resource. So these two links in the chain, the institutions we create as a result of these policies to implement them, and the human resource we put there are, I'm very sorry, suboptimal. That's saying it in a very nice and pleasant way. So what and where are we wanting to go? So I think the world has always shown us that wherever innovation happens, and this is really, if we want to address the needs of the modern areas of Pakistan, I think that innovation is the key. And innovation has never happened in the government. Innovation has never even happened in the corporate sector. Innovation has always happened with people, with communities, with free thinkers, and for that, an absence of policy is a blessing. So मैं तो आप सब लोगों से प्लीज ये रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि कोई और पॉलिसी ना बनाए. No more policies for anywhere. Right? Number two, on investment. I think, Hassan, you're there, and thank you. I'm back, yes, without any, got back yesterday. The point here is that why are we asking World Bank, UN, हमारा तो वो नहीं करता है, sorry I have to say this in Urdu, हमारा वो नहीं करता है, बस ये World Bank आ जाए, UN आ जाए, फलाना आ जाए, ये आ जाए, वो आ जाए, भैया हमारे अपने पैसे करते हैं, वो क्या प्रॉपर्टी खरीदने के लिए या दुबई में प्रॉपर्टी खरीदने के लिए लाख ऑफ करेगा. So let me again redefine what is poverty. There is a different, the structure of poverty in Pakistan in these areas. Munafar is sitting here, or Darjat is sitting there, Masood is sitting there. The real poverty structure is not hand-to-mouth poverty in these areas. It's a very different kind of poverty. It's energy poverty. It's poverty of access. It's poverty of connectivity. But money is there. You see, instead of building 400 bedroom and this hotels in front of Azabad Lake to destroy the natural environment of the lake and put effluents into an area which feeds the entire Pakistan with its water, I mean, we can actually invest that money in distributed energy. We can actually, these people are more than happy to contribute to improve their livelihoods. And you have just seen, Kausar showed an example. These examples are numerous. So we are not waiting for investors here. What we are waiting for here is for Pakistanis themselves to come and invest in these areas. Because GB, AJK, Upper Chitral, these are also sensitive areas for us. We personally mean from an energy security point of view, from a country security point of view, I would not like a Chinese investing in GB. Sorry, Azerbaijan, but that's my sort of fun feeling. We have enough money floating around in Pakistan. I want Pakistani money to move up. And I think that's the point that Raj was making. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Ahmed Durrani Saab, and thank you so much, Dr. Hassan Daud, for giving a very precise, workable roadmap. Now, actually, we're very much close to the break session, so we'll just take in the last speakers. We have Ms. Sadia Qayyum with us. She's working as an energy specialist at the World Bank Group. Yeah, so over to you, Sadia. Can you just share the
Hi everyone, apologies, I just joined, so I'm not sure what the discussions have been. And I'm also keeping you, I'm the one between you and your lunch, so I'll keep it short. I mean, yeah, I agree with, we shouldn't look at World Bank and UNDP and all these other organizations. And just to make things more complicated, World Bank cannot even, I mean, we club these northern areas as special regions and cannot even operate or work there. But anyway, so we have this energy access technical assistance under which we commission this National Energy Access Survey across the country, which includes these special regions as well. My presentation today, I don't know if you knew about it, or if anyone, if you attended, there was a dissemination workshop on this for this MTF survey, I think 2 weeks ago, where we presented the key findings of the energy access survey. And what we use is the multi-tier framework approach, which just not looks at this binary, looks at energy or electricity access as this binary problem of whether you have grid connection or not, but it actually goes a step further and asks about or look at multiple attributes of energy access, which is beyond having a pole near your house, which is when you're getting electricity, how much electricity you're getting, whether it's affordable or not, whether it's the voltage that you need or not. And it gives the survey gives us very interesting results because there's always been this very different numbers that are thrown around in terms of what is the electricity access in Pakistan, and then there's another figure, what is the access to clean fuel for cooking and heating. And next slide. And yeah, even next. So yeah, it looks at different tiers of access, going from tier 0, which is not having any electricity, using candles and kerosene light for lighting, and then you're going to tier 6, which is 24 hours of reliable electricity. Next slide. So what we found using the survey was, and in Gilgit-Baltistan, because it's not connected to national grid, so microgrids was considered as connected to electric grid. And what we found was 90% of Pakistan is actually grid connected. When you look at official figures of the domestic connections of all the distribution companies, and number of households, it's actually consistent with that. It's around like 86%. This also includes informal connections, and you will see in Sindh and Balochistan, we actually saw a very high percentage of informal connections or illegal connections. That means they were not paying a bill to anybody, or they were paying to Kunda. Another 8% of population is using solar home systems. And this also varies across provinces, this percentage, and then there's only 2% which is not connected to grid electricity and does not have standalone solar home solutions. Next slide. So this is tiers of access, and this actually combines all the attributes that I was talking about. So this is affordability, this is availability of electricity, this is quality of electricity, and safety. And what we see is that you have 58% of our population which is tier 2 and below, which means that they're not getting electricity for more than 5-6 hours a day. It's not affordable for a large percentage of the population, for not large, but like I think it's 10-20% of the population is not affordable. And then it is, and most problems was actually reliability of supply. We know there are large areas of Pakistan which have access to grid, but they're not getting electricity for more than 7-8 hours, and it becomes worse when you go to rural areas. Next slide. So this is this graph over here shows the percentage of households which are between aggregate tier 0 and tier 2. So that's the lowest tier that we're talking about. Sindh has the highest percentage of population that is in between tier 0 and 2, just 11%, followed by Balochistan, which is 8.1%, and then we have KPK. And these are areas with high informal connections, very low informal connections, very low collections, and therefore these areas are not being provided electricity at for 24 hours, because that's the utilities way of curtailing supply and making sure that there are lesser losses for these utilities. Special regions for HK and GB, I mean, we have data, I just aggregate data, not for this presentation, but 22% or 25% of the population are between tier 0 and 2, but there's a much smaller percentage compared to Sindh and Balochistan of those who are in tier 0. We also did a public institution survey, so that was health and education facilities, because these are the two public institutions that need electricity service, because these are your basic services for your population, and that the access to electricity also varies across health centers and across education centers. Health centers were comparatively better off compared to education centers, where you have like 11% of population and 24%, which is in just tier 0 and tier 1. And rural, and you also see a disparity between urban and rural areas. So there's a lot of work that's required in just improving the access for just these basic health and education service facilities. This was representative at national level, so we don't have province-wise or region-wise results. But this is consistent with what we're seeing in terms of tiers of access for households as well, right? Next slide. We also did an enterprise survey. So this was for agro-processing, micro manufacturing, and service sectors. And there also we see that most of the enterprises that we interviewed were in tier 2 and tier 3. The main problem for a lot of these enterprises was that they don't get electricity when they need it, and either they have to sit idle, halt their operations, or have to invest in diesel backup, which leads to reduce profitability, reduce income, reduce profitability, and next slide. So these were the 4 areas of improvement as a very 30,000 feet recommendations on what Pakistan, what the government needs to focus on. It's done well in terms of extending connections, but when it comes to reliability, there's a still long way to go. Voltage fluctuation is also an issue, and that's related to your quality of supply, right? And we know the status of our distribution infrastructure, and how that also varies across provinces. And talking about energy poverty, it's consistent with the other kinds of the other poverty that we see. Affordability is an issue. We have subsidized tariff, but we also know that the cost of generation in Pakistan is very high, and there's a constant pressure from multilaterals and multilaterals to increase the tariffs. But that means that electricity is increasingly becoming unaffordable for a large percentage of the population. And informal connections is a problem, because that leads to lower collections, under recovery, circular debt, and then it's a vicious cycle. So that's a lot of things that the utilities need to focus on. Next slide. I mean, this is about GB, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but important thing, government needs to upgrade the distribution infrastructure, whether it's public investment, whether it's getting investment from the private sector. We've seen, within public sector, the distribution companies, they've not been able to achieve a lot, right? And Punjab, discos in Punjab are better, those in Sindh, KPK, and Balochistan, they're a big question mark in terms of their performance. And therefore, it would be important for the government to try out any kind of private sector participation, whether it's concession contract, management contracts, or just outsourcing metering and billing. But keeping them within the public sector and thinking that the results are going to be any different is not going to work. Of course, adding more renewable energy, whether it's national energy mix or whether it's for Gilgit-Baltistan or AJK, just adding more renewable energy, whether it's hydro, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, wherever whatever energy resources available, utilizing that to reduce the energy costs. Formalizing informal connections, that's 2% in Balochistan, and then just expanding electricity access. One work that we've done is, and we'll have a workshop on this soon, is this least cost electrification plan and mini grid assessment. So this actually maps out how Pakistan can achieve universal electricity access by 2030. And what it shows is it's a combination of grid extension, grid densification, which is just reinforcement of the existing grid, plus mini microgrids, and we've identified 1,030 high priority microgrid sites in Pakistan, given the distance from the grid and the population size. And some areas where even microgrids are not sustainable, and then standalone solar system would be a feasible choice. And here we're talking about maybe areas like Thar, or in some areas in Balochistan where you have small pockets of population but large geographical areas. Unfortunately, that mini grids, these cost work and mini grids work does not include AJK and GB, and the reason for that was if we need 11 kV network data, we need to map where the distribution network is today, and then chart out what the trajectory for these cost electrification is going to be. We did not get that data from these two areas. Also, these two areas have high grid connectivity, so over there it's more about grid densification, reinforcement. And also things that we're seeing in India and Nigeria is this concept of under the grid microgrid. So you have your distribution utility wires going over there, but you also have private sector coming in and setting up these microgrids to provide this alternate or parallel electricity service. But for that to work out, you need to have this arrangement between the distribution company and these microgrid developers. But at the same time, with microgrids, we know electricity cost is going to be expensive compared to what distribution utilities are providing. Even though in a lot of areas the connection cost is high, or the cost of extending the grid is high, but because it's seen as this universal right, distribution companies extend the grid, and provide electricity to these consumers at very subsidized rates. So a microgrid developer, when they come over in these under the grid areas, of course they have to recover their cost. And here, productive load or your anchor load becomes extremely important. And residential load cannot provide you with that anchor load, and for that you need productive use. So the microgrid developer will essentially work with the community and stimulate your productive demand, because those productive users or demand will essentially cross-subsidize your residential consumers. The same concept of cross-subsidization that we have with distribution utilities. And I think that's something that could work for these areas. In that report, we will be providing examples of different business models that could get private sector investment, even though Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan are not covered in those two reports. Those business models could actually be replicated for those areas. So we will have, inshallah, we're planning for this workshop in January, and we'll invite all of you for feedback. And the report is ready. The report isn't ready. The first draft is ready, and if somebody wants it and hasn't gotten a copy of it, I can share. Thanks, sir.
Share it with SDPI and perhaps
Yeah.
you can.
I'll do that. Yes, very quickly, sorry, on access to clean cooking, because we talk about electricity and we forget about all the other energy uses that people are burning biomass and wood for cooking and heating needs. Here we'd ask questions on access to clean cooking, and this is just comparison with other countries where we see Pakistan is still 44% connected. 44% of the population in Pakistan is using either LPG or pipe gas network for cooking. And here also, the access to cooking varies across quintiles. So much higher access to pipe gas network of LPG in the top 20% of the fourth quintile and much less in the bottom 20%. And we have these graphs for electricity access too. And most large percentage of our population are actually, especially in rural areas, are actually are using your 3 stones open fire stove or these traditionally built cook stove which have low efficiency, which are high emissions and a health hazard for women and children. And then this is how access to cooking varies across provinces. And here also you see a lot of disparity. You have Punjab and Sindh, which have higher access compared to special regions where we have what, like 70, 80% of the population which is using traditional built cook stoves or open fire cook stoves. It's also low in KPK, again mountainous areas. It is low in Balochistan as well. So much more work is required on access to clean cooking and or heating than it is required for access to electricity. Next. And here, I mean, unfortunately, the bank hasn't worked in Pakistan, but there's an SMAC Clean Cooking Fund that's working on developing clean cooking solutions for other countries. But a programmatic approach is required over here because there has been this fragmented work on clean cooking stoves by various NGOs. There were these 2 examples that we came across when we were doing this survey because we actually showed to the respondents that if they're using traditional cook stoves and they had an alternative option which was more efficient and which was reducing their time on cooking, but at the same time reducing the amount of fuel that they need to burn. The majority of the population said that they would still not go for this clean cooking option because the cost is very high. So that means one, there's educational problem as well, but the second thing is that there's an affordability issue as well, and that's where you're subsidizing electricity access. We're giving subsidies to many very different sectors, and most of these subsidies are extremely regressive. This is where your government subsidy should be going. And as I said, a programmatic approach is required where you work with local manufacturers to build local solutions because that's important to reduce your cost. And then also work with the population for stimulating demand, whether it's through awareness campaigns, marketing, reaching out to women because that always helps because they're the ones who are cooking and they're the ones who are getting affected by using a traditional cook stove. And that's a problem we had. I mean, I remember for SE for All, National Action Plan that we were working on as part of UNDP's assignment back in 2016, and we would present to the different stakeholders, access to clean cooking data, and they would say no, हमारी ख़वातीन तो यूज़ कर वो तो शायद बहुत अच्छे कुक स्टोर्स और जो भी मतलब उसको यूज़ कर रहे हैं. So most of the stakeholders or policy makers do not even see it as a problem, and therefore you need to reach this right audience over here for you to have to create demand for this. And maybe this is an area that we will get involved as part of energy access work that we are doing. But again, I mean, these are these high, as I said, 30,000 feet recommendations and data on what is the electricity and the energy access situation in Pakistan. But the important thing is how to actually translate this into actual projects and actual implementation.
Yes, again, thank you so much, Sadia, for this showing all these statistics and very solid recommendation. I think perhaps I'll speak on behalf of all of them that will be actually looking forward to this study. Yeah. So again, just in the interest of time, we've already extended 10 minutes. So if anyone has any very quick questions for Sadia before we head to our lunch break. Yeah, okay. So thank you so much.
Everyone wants their lunch.
जीबी को आप वर्ल्ड बैंक वाले बातें करते हैं हमें आप लोग नहीं शामिल नहीं करते हैं बस ये this is not a comment.
Yes. I hope this is not being recorded. I'm not even supposed to say this to Klaus.
Yes, we have stopped recording. Yeah. Okay, so with this, we'll take almost 1 hour lunch break, and we'll again join back at around 2:30. The lunch is just been served outside. The seating arrangement is all there. So yeah, look forward again meeting you all out there. Thank you so much, everyone.